Hello, Thompson Blue family, and hello, everyone watching the Priory podcast with Dave Jackson. Before we go any further, Dave Jackson, I just want to say to you, thank you, my brother. Thank you for doing these podcasts. It's amazing to be able to listen to the legends of Thompson Blue, and you've had some amazing legends on there, and all of the people that are on Thompson Blue are legends, but just to listen to the stories, man, absolutely incredible. So we appreciate you, Dave. Thank you so much for doing these, and I just want you to know it doesn't go unnoticed. You bring back a lot of memories with all the guests that you bring on, so thank you, my brother. We appreciate you. Now, Dave asked me to introduce someone to you that I toured with in 1989. First, let me tell you about this guy. He is an absolutely amazing instrumentalist. That dude could play guitar like you would not believe. And you know what? He would play it with a smile, and you could tell he was having fun. But let me tell you about something about the smile. Behind that smile, he was mischievous. I'm telling you, that smile was mischievous. That's just my opinion. And you can ask the band, because I'm telling you, it looked like he always had something up his sleeve. But I'm telling you, this guy is a super nice guy. He's a family man, and he is just an all-around good dude. So Dave, I want you to know I'm so happy you're going to have this guy on because he's amazing. And Chris Knox Sr., I want to tell you, thank you for the memories of touring with you in 1989. It was such a blast. You're a true professional. You made it fun. And you know what? I don't think I ever saw Chris get mad. And I'm being honest with you when I tell you that. You know, he was always highly spirited. Again, always had a smile on his face, always so positive. So, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great honor to introduce to you a friend, a TIB brother that I will always cherish for the rest of my life. I want you to put your hands together for my man, my brother, TIB 1989, Chris Knox Sr. Dave Jackson, take it away, my brother.
On you.
Okay, folks, listen up. This gentleman you see on the screen right here next to me, I met many years ago in USAFE. As a matter of fact, him and I competed against each other in the same category one year, and he beat me one year. And then, come to find out, or much years later, when I was at Worldwide, I had to interview through this guy to make the 93 team. So, without further ado, I bring you Chris Knox Sr., 20-year veteran of the United States Air Force, Thompson Blue 89 Overseas Tour, the A Dream into the Future Tour. He was an intel analyst. He also did some PME instructing, professional military education instruction. Chris, thanks for coming on to
Hey,
Priory, man. I appreciate it.
oh man, my pleasure. Thanks for the invitation. This has
Oh,
been long overdue.
yeah, man. The last time we talked, I think was, well, I think we saw each other at Tom's retirement ceremony.
Yep,
That was it. Yeah, man. Yeah, Chris and I go ways back. It's
late
it's
80s.
fascinating how these come full circle after all these years.
Yeah, yeah.
So before we start talking about everything Thompson Blue and periphery on the Thompson Blue and everything adjacent to Thompson Blue, I want to hear about your pre-military life. Now, where you grew up. Talk to me about that whole time period before you actually signed up for the Air Force. I want to hear all that good stuff about your family. Does your
Wow.
family have military history? All that kind of thing. So
Well,
hit
yeah,
me,
my
sir.
my my dad was in the Korean War, and after the Korean War, he's actually from Louisiana, from Baton Rouge, but he moved and migrated to the Midwest, like so many folks back in the late 50s, mid to late 50s.
Hmm.
And so I was actually born in Chicago, south side of Chicago. I was there until I was 9, and then they divorced, and I moved with my mother to Detroit. And I was in Detroit for the next 9.5 years, and then I came in the Air Force at 19 after about a year after high school.
Okay.
And musically, I've been around music as far back as I can remember. My dad loved to sing, and of course, in Chicago, you had so many great groups that came out of Chicago. But one of the things that was really big in Chicago was the gospel quartet, and that was actually where Sam Cooke got his start in
Okay.
gospel. And so, my dad was a big Sam Cooke fan. I've heard everything, and I actually have a copy of everything Sam Cooke ever recorded because
Right.
of my father. But I heard him singing as I was growing up, and then it was funny. My dad and my uncle, his brother, would always want a guitar, but never learned how to play it. And so I guess in the time that I lived with him, he's had a couple of guitars, but then something would happen, and even when he had it, it was funny. He would tune it to an E chord and then play it, like a slide, which is what a lot of players did too back in the
Right.
day, and I didn't know
Right.
that. So it's tuned to an E chord, and he would just slide, and so trying to sing the old blues song, and just one finger up and down the neck, and he would make it work.
Hmm.
And so that's how I started.
Okay.
What was interesting though, too, man, the guitar, of course, old acoustic guitar, man, and I could barely hold it in my lap. It was so big.
Well, how old were you at that time when you first put a guitar in your lap?
Probably 6, 7 when I first
Okay.
tried to pick it up. But it was
Yeah.
funny because, again, I'm trying to play by ear. I'm trying to play a chord, like he
Hmm.
did. I didn't know about standard tuning and fingerings and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm just imitating what I saw him do. And what was crazy is I'm left-handed.
Right.
And so at that time, I had never seen a left-handed player. So the only way I know to do is pick it up and do what I see them do. So I'm holding it right-handed, and I eventually learned how to play right-handed.
Oh, wow.
And so you got to figure that was just a couple of years, elementary school. By the time I moved to Detroit, interestingly enough, my stepfather was also very big into music, and not surprisingly, being in Detroit in the Motown heyday, right?
Hmm.
And so he
Yep.
was a singer also. He loved to sing and was also part of a gospel quartet. So I would hear him singing and some of the guys that he knew, and same thing. He bought a guitar but never learned how to play it, and so I would pick it up. My brother would pick up the drums, and we were trying to be the next Jacksons, you
Right.
know. But that never panned out. And I took a break. I played trumpet for a year in junior high school, and I played drums for a year in junior high school. But by the time I left junior high school and got into high school, I stopped playing altogether. I didn't want to play nothing.
Oh, really?
I
Why?
didn't just just
Just wanted
didn't
to
want
drop it.
to. It,
Yeah.
it seemed like it was a lot. I really felt like I didn't have the support of my father at the time or my stepfather at the time, and uh, and I just wanted to work, right? So I
Right.
just wanted to get through school work and get out. And so no, I didn't play at all in high school. I didn't play the band, nothing, no local band, nothing. I thought about it a couple of times. I'd pick it up a couple of times, but I'm like, nah. I did eventually learn how to tune the guitar. I got into standard tuning, so I
Hmm.
learned that. And then I'd see a couple of guys trying to play it. And I'm thinking, man, how do you do your fingers like that? And you
Yeah.
know, and I want to say probably in my senior year, I started buying sheet music, like Beatles,
Mhm.
and I learned how to play like Let It Be and something like that with the chords written at the top.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's kind of where I started to get my break into chord theory. But I knew scales. I knew a little bit of scale, well, just the major scale from playing
Yeah.
trumpet. I
Yeah.
had a sense of rhythm
You
from
had some
playing drums.
pre-training. Yeah. Yeah. Makes
But
sense.
outside of that, that was it, man. That was my musical background, and it wasn't until I came in the military that I decided to pick it back up. And funny story, I was in tech school actually in San Angelo,
Okay.
and the guys had a little band there, and guys had a bass, and he had this old Yamaha bass, man, and wanted to get rid of it. I'm like, I'll take it. And so I bought it, and I was messing around with the bass a little bit because I figured bass would be easier, 4 strings, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then I got to San Antonio, and then I met this other guy here who was a phenomenal bass player. And I thought, okay, I'll never be that good. So I even put the bass down. I'm like, I don't want to play. But I would follow them around. And I followed these guys around, and they were big into the gospel church scene here. And they were probably some of the best at the time here in the city when it came
Yeah.
to traditional gospel and stuff like that. So I would follow them and just hang out, a bass player, drummer, another keyboard player. And we
So
became
you
real
were doing a
close.
lot of watching, a lot of watching and a lot of emulating.
I was, but I wasn't playing. That was the
Yeah, you
thing.
weren't playing.
And
Yeah.
then when I met my wife, she had a bass guitar. And so I'm like,
Oh,
oh, what are you doing with that? And she's like, I love the bass and I want to play and let me hear you play something. And so she played Boogie Oogie Oogie and she was so proud. And I'm like, ooh, that's good.
wow.
And so then I played something and I says, she was playing something on the radio or whatever. And I picked it up and I started playing. She's like, oh, you know how to play? And I'm like, I played a little bit. And so she put it down. She's like, well, I can't play as good as you. And then, like I said, I met this guy and he happened to live in the same complex where we lived. And when I heard him, I'm like, well, I'll never be as good as him. But when I took my when I took my wife home to meet my family, my uncle had a guitar in the corner, and I'm like, "What are you doing with that?" And he's like, nothing. You want it here? It's a wedding present." And so I came
Oh,
back and told the guys, "Hey, look, I got a guitar." And so now we got a guitar. We had somebody in the complex with a bass, somebody with a drum, and the bass player actually lived right outside the pool. His apartment was right next to the pool,
okay.
and so we would go down to his apartment. He'd open the windows and we try to play everything on the radio. Just as it would
Right.
come up, we try to play it. And so now I'm learning chords, I'm trying to learn rhythm, and again, I didn't know what I was playing, Dave. I
Yeah.
could just figure out chords and then I would go to the music store and buy a chord book. And at one point, I probably had 10 different chord books, from the Thousand Chord Encyclopedia to, Mel Bay chord thing.
Yep.
And I thought, I will never learn all these chords. But what was interesting is in most of those books, they had the chord theory, right? The intervals and everything that shows you how the chords are
Right.
formed. And I read that and I read that and I'm like, there's something important about this, but it never clicked. It never clicked. It never clicked. And I said, I'm gonna keep it. And even as I was buying and selling chord books and tearing them up, I always kept that one sheet. In fact, I
Hmm.
even typed it up and saved it in my computer so I'd have it, or I had a paper copy for the longest and then transferred it to my computer. But we started writing, me and this friend, and we started writing music. And as we were writing, that's where I started to really understand some of what I was playing. I'm starting to hear major, minor,
Hmm.
diminish, dominant chords. I still didn't quite know how to put it together. And the writing is what helped me though, because I put together patterns. And so, that's how that started. And, playing all of the rhythm stuff. So everything I grew up on though, all of the R&B stuff, Earth, Wind and Fire, Isley Brothers, that was what I cut my teeth doing. And, Chic, all of the funky rhythm stuff. I
Yeah.
was never a soloist for the longest. I hated soloing. I didn't know how to approach it. I didn't know what I was doing with it. I
Right.
didn't understand how people could play all those notes all over the place and in the spur of the moment,
Yeah. Yeah.
that believe it or not, that came just before I got on tour.
Oh, so the we'll talk about the tour in a minute. So basically the information bubble popped right before you got in the tour. All it kind of clicked all of a sudden
Yep,
how to do leads. Oh,
yep,
okay. All
yep.
right. What was your first album you ever bought?
Oh wow.
Or
Probably
your first cassette or your first 8 track or your first reel to reel or whatever.
it was probably the Temptations, the Temptations from Detroit
Hmm.
and what was interesting back in that day before I came in, they were still in Detroit. They were just moving to California. Motown was still in Detroit.
Hmm.
And so it was nothing, man, to drive around town to go to the club. I mean, by the time I was 17, 18, and I wanted to go to the club, it was nothing to go around the corner and see a small club and look and see the Temptations here, Diana Ross, Gladys Knight, and
Wow.
they would
Wow.
pop in. I mean, not like the
Yeah.
big venues that they play now. I mean, you talking about the little hole in the wall clubs, and they would be there, and they'd be there for
Right.
like a week, you know. And so
Wow.
that was the environment. I mean, literally right around the corner from my house. I grew up on the northwest side of Detroit. You'll hear people talk about 8 Mile, from Eminem. I was on
Hmm.
between 6 Mile and 5 Mile in Greenfield. So I wasn't far from that whole area, but a lot of clubs in that space.
Yeah, you were
Sorry.
knee deep in all that good stuff.
Yeah, and it was funny because, I had some neighbors who were all in bands. I mean, in Detroit too, man, you couldn't go 2 blocks without hearing a band, a garage band somewhere playing. I mean,
Hmm.
literally, if you were
Yeah.
walking, 2, 3 blocks and you'd hear another band in a garage somewhere playing. And so everybody was trying to do something. Everybody you talked to had a cousin who knew somebody at Motown, whatever.
Hmm. Yeah.
But it was not surprising to bump into some of the people that are now famous and this was
Yeah.
before they were famous.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
What? So once you started playing, well, once you started really getting into it, and you started understanding how to, how to put chords together, and you were starting to listen to more music and kind of broaden your horizons with the music. What did you have any specific players or bands, groups that you leaned on for? Yeah, I want to learn that song because it's great, or I want to learn that song because it sounds like chords that I know.
Um, my interest was first toward the stuff that I just liked, that sounded good.
Mhm.
Rufus and Shaka Khan was really big. Chic in the early '70s, early to late '70s. Of course, the Isley Brothers,
Mhm.
and then even with a lot of the ballads from the big R&B groups of the day, the Temptations again, Four Tops, Gladys Knight. There would be signature licks, and the licks is what would catch my ear, right? I'd hear
Right,
that
right,
and I'm
right,
like,
right.
man, I love that little lick, right? And I got to a place where, I'd listen to the song just for that lick. And there are two or three albums, man, that I probably wore out because I'd play that one little spot over and over and
Over
over
and over
again,
again. Yeah. Yep. As we all did back then.
Yeah,
Keep dropping
and
the
then
needle. Keep dropping the
same
needle.
with the cassettes, man.
Yep.
Tear up
Yep.
cassettes, right? Buying pre-recorded cassettes and breaking them, and then trying to wait for it to play on the radio so you can record it, things like that.
Right.
So really date
When
myself here.
Oh, no, no, you're preaching to the choir, brother. I'm with you on that one. That's all I can. That's all I did was drop needles, just to find bass parts again. Just kept dropping
Yeah.
needles and over again, or like you said, rewinding the cassette. Um, it's interesting to me because I just started playing guitar.
Okay.
I'm in the Guitar for Vets program, which is wonderful, by the way. I recommend that to anybody who wants to know how to play guitar. I was never a guitar player. Never. I think I maybe picked up a guitar maybe 3 times in my entire life. It's been all bass oriented. But when this program came up, I said, I want to try it. So I totally understand what you're saying about you hear certain things, you're like, oh, okay, I think I like that. I'm gonna go find that and see if I can't pick it out. But what it's interesting to me is nowadays, can you imagine if we had had YouTube when we were young?
Oh gosh. You know what? I would say we'd be like a lot of these phenomenons that we see nowadays, though, because they're picking up so much, and it's just right there. Somebody can walk them through it.
Yep.
Show them the licks, show them the tuning, give them
You
close-ups,
can
which we
slow
didn't
stuff
have.
down. Yeah. It's I can't imagine. I mean, there's some folks who would say, they didn't go through the hard knocks like, you know, pre YouTube folks went through.
Right,
But
right.
if it's a tool, it's a tool, right? If
Yep.
it works, it works. If it's someone who can create good music, because they got influenced by YouTube. And to your point about hearing different things, I am so fascinated. So I'm playing the acoustic guitar with this Guitar for Vets program. I am so fascinated by I will hear a chord, or I'll play a chord, or I'll learn a chord, or a couple chords, and then I'll hear another song on the radio, and I'll be like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let me go back and look up the chords for that song. And
Yeah.
dude, it's addicting. It's
Yeah.
addicting. You're like, oh, I can play that progression of chords. Let me find out what songs have that as well. So I get that. I'm having an absolute ball doing this guitar
Yeah.
stuff. I'm
Yeah.
having an absolute ball doing this. Even my wife is going, Dave, that's really pretty. Did you just make that up? I'm like, yeah, I just made that up because all she hears is bass all my life, and you can't relate to bass lines,
Right.
for humming songs and stuff like that. You want to hear the whole
Right.
thing.
Right.
So,
Right.
all right. So your military career, um, why the Air Force? What brought you into the Air Force?
Well, my dad was in the Army, as I mentioned, and I did Army ROTC in high school. At the time, there was no Air Force ROTC. So
Okay.
everybody that did ROTC was doing Army. You didn't really get a choice until you got into college, maybe.
Hmm.
And so having done Army ROTC, I had a taste of that. And I'm like, no. And having heard my dad's war stories and my uncle's horror stories, and then I had another uncle that actually did go into the Air Force, and he was pretty smart. He was always challenging me, right? Mental games, puzzles, riddles, jokes, but he was always testing me mentally. And so I knew Army. I didn't like outdoors. I still don't. I don't like camping. I don't like the idea of tents.
I don't
There's
like
nothing.
outdoors.
There's
That's
nothing
great.
about wanting to be in the woods that fascinates me,
Okay,
right?
fair enough.
Pitching tents, hikes, all of that.
Yeah.
So that right away that was out. I'm afraid of water. I can't swim, even at this stage of my life. I can't swim. I mean, I've
Okay.
been in, I've learned to swim a little bit,
Yeah.
but under pressure, I'd probably drown and drown anybody around me, which almost happened. I might tell you the story later,
Okay.
if it's, it's kind of embarrassing, but gives you a sense. So, because I have such a fear of water, I knew the Navy was out. And as much as most boys growing up think that they're tough and rough and want to be, this super powerful, whatever,
Hmm.
superhero, um, I knew that I didn't want to be something like a SEAL or Special Forces. And again, having to go through all of that physical training, I was not that gung ho about nothing.
Hmm.
So Marines were out. So the only
Yeah.
thing that's
By
left was the
default.
Air Force, right?
Yeah.
And then the idea of just being around the airplanes. I did have a fascination with aircraft and airplanes. So of all of the choices, that fascinated me. The
Well, it's good.
equipment of the military of the army was not fascinating. The army equipment, tanks, things like that, big gun, tanks and guns. Just I
Yeah.
mean,
Well,
because that's all you think
what would
about.
happen if you've been afraid of flying? What would happen
Uh,
if you said if you've been afraid of flying? What would have happened then? Not
then
that you became a pilot, but still,
I probably would not have come in at all. I probably would have stayed in college
probably
and
stayed in
found something
college.
else to
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So did you go? Why the Intel? I'm curious about this Intel. I mean, I just had another Intel person on in the last podcast. Why Intel? Did you go in open or did you select that?
No, it was open. And that was
Okay.
the thing, man. I had so many things that I wanted to do that I had no idea what to do in the Air Force. And like most 18, 19-year-olds, when you talk to recruiters, they paint a big picture, but it's a numbers game. They're really just trying to get you in. And so if you were
Hmm.
to look at a job description and say, well, what is this? Probably 95, 98% of the recruiters couldn't even tell you because they've only done maybe one or two jobs themselves. And then
Right.
they're
Right.
reading the job description and trying to figure it out. And
Yep.
so, when I saw communication and security analyst and I'm reading the job, I'm like, I don't know what is it. It sounds halfway interesting. So that was on my dream sheet for one of the possible assignments. And that's where I ended up because I had security police and a couple other things, but when they said, well, this is what you're going to do, I'm like, okay, what is that? We don't know. You'll figure it out when you
Right.
go to tech school. Where's my tech school? And of course, back then, that's when they had the five tech schools, Lowry,
Yep.
Lackland, Shepherd,
Chanute.
whatever.
Yep.
And they said, you're going to Goodfellow. And I'm like, what? What? Where's Goodfellow? Is that a school? And they said, yeah, it's in Texas. Really, where? And
Yeah.
San Angelo. Where is that? And
Yeah.
little bitty school that specializes in Intel career fields. And yeah, so that's where I ended up. And
Did you
it was
enjoy that
interesting
career
though.
field?
I'm
Did
sorry?
you enjoy it?
Not at first.
Okay. Okay.
Not at first. Because like most Intel, you're working around classified information. And so the school is behind a skiff. And so you had to do everything there in on site, in the campus, in the skiff.
Hmm.
So you couldn't take stuff home to study.
Oh.
Uh, you know, and so I hated that. You go in, you study with somebody supervising you. You go to class, then you go to study hall or whatever, your study time. But then you go back to your room and it's like, okay, if I didn't get it, how do I retain it? How do I go back and reread or refresh or whatever? And then, of course, you have a certain time frame to get it because you're going to have tests, and if you
Right.
don't pass, you're going to get washed out. So you're kind of forced to, barely pass, which is what I did. I
Yeah.
barely passed, and then I got my first assignment to San Antonio. So I came back
Ah.
to San Antonio, which I don't know if that was a blessing. Well, it was in hindsight, it was a blessing, but it didn't feel like it at first.
Right. Right.
And
Um, so you were in a career field, you were in a tech school that had no homework
very little homework. Yeah, very
because of the
little
nature of
homework.
the career field. Wow.
Yeah. And so
Um,
when I got to my first assignment, same thing. We'd have you had to get your three level and your five level, and even that you had the documents that you worked from were classified documents, so it's not like you could study anything. You had so much time to study. Then here's work that you had to do to
right.
get your upgrade, but it still had to be there on site. In
Hmm.
your office. And so and so much time to do it, and so if you weren't progressing, that became another item for a write up and all of that. And I have a different story. We'll probably get to it, but my career started so rough and rocky that, like I said, by the time I got to San Antonio, my first assignment, man, I was a basket case. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. So the PME instructor, I'm always fascinated by the folks who go into the ancillary career fields like PME. Is that because you wanted out of Intel, or you just wanted to break, or you just wanted to be an instructor, or what brought you to the PME world?
All of the above. It was
Okay.
all of the above. I did it at the end of my career. And if you had asked me at the beginning of my career, especially how things started, that would have been the last thing I would have done. Any kind of instructor, let alone PME instructor, because
Hmm.
next to an MTI, PME is the poster child of the military member.
Yep.
And but I remember when I first went to leadership school, I was really impressed with the instructors that I had there. And then by the time I was able to go to the academy, excuse me, those instructors were even more impressive. And I thought, man, I could see myself doing that. But it was an interesting thing. So we're going to have to digress here in a second because I got to tell you this story to
No
tell you how I
worries.
got there.
Yep. That's fine. Yep. No.
But when I saw that, I thought, man, if I could do that, I would love that. And I ended up getting an opportunity. So I have to digress for a second because I mentioned, my career started very rocky.
Hmm.
Dave, I came in the Air Force in 76,
Okay.
right? And back in the mid 70s, I had, you would not believe it. I had to probably find a photo and send you. I had a big afro before I came in. When I graduated high school, I had this really big afro. My hair was my identity.
Hmm.
And of course, when I got to basic and they cut all my hair off, I felt like I'd been scalped and raped almost. I'm like,
Wow. Yeah.
it was such a big part of my identity.
All that work
But
and it's all gone.
but I was always a stickler of understanding the rules and knowing the rules but more importantly, wanting to know why. It wasn't so much do this, but why do we have to do this? And if it
Right.
didn't make sense, I didn't want to do it. And so again, I had hold on one second. My wife's on the phone and she's on
Oh, no worries.
speakerphone.
No worries.
So, having had ROTC in high school, I already had an idea of military structure. So
Hmm.
I became a squad leader right away. And because of that, I was actually doing pretty good. But I got my hair cut. And by the time we get to that first week, where they go over the UCMJ and other things and kind of looking at the whole schedule of basic training activities, I think by the end of the first week, they started talking about a second haircut. And I'm like, I'm not going to need a haircut in a week, right?
Makes no sense. Yeah.
Huh?
Makes no sense. Yeah.
No, it makes no sense. My hair don't
Yeah.
grow that fast where I'm going to need a haircut. And now I know what the regulation calls for. So I'm like, I know it won't be out of regs. It won't be touching my ears. It won't be too long.
Yeah.
And so I kept trying to talk to my drill instructor about a haircut. He like, later, later. I mean, literally, I kept trying to go to him outside when we were in formation, in the dorms, what have you. And it's like always later, later, later. Well, later didn't come until we're standing in front of the barbershop and I'm number two in line. And I said, I've been trying to talk to you about this haircut and you've been putting me off. And he's like, we're not going to talk about it now either. I'm like, are you going to get a haircut? I'm like, no. He's like, what?
And
I'm
this
like,
is and this is TI's back in the 70s.
right.
So I can't even
This was
imagine.
this was right. This was right after they stopped taking you behind the barracks
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and and, and whooping your butt.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
I
that they
can't
had just
imagine,
stopped that. They had
Chris.
just stopped that.
I can't imagine walking up to a TI. I said, "Listen, man, my hair doesn't grow that fast. You think I could just let it grow out? Look, can you give me like a 2 week waiver?" I can't even
It
imagine
wasn't. It wasn't even
walking to a
about a
TI.
waiver. I just didn't want to. I just didn't want to get the haircut because I didn't want to spend the money for a haircut that I don't need.
But Chris, how did you pitch that to a TI, for God's sake? I can't even
I mean, I was trying
imagine.
to be respectful. I go to the door and knock and report and all the stuff that they were teaching you to do. And I said, I need to talk to you about something. I said, I
That's
want to talk to you about
great.
a haircut. He said, I don't want to talk about a haircut. I want to talk about it now. Okay, well, can I come back later? So we'll talk about it later. Okay, then I
Wow.
leave, come back the next day. We'll talk about it later. And that's what he kept telling me. We'll talk about it later. Well, now later is standing in front of the barbershop.
Wow.
And,
Wow.
and I said, no, flat out, no. He's like, what? No. I said, give me that squad leader badge. They took my squad leader badge. They just step out of line. We'll deal with you later. And so they didn't even let me go back up to the dorm room. They just had me sit in the day room there.
Mhm.
And I sat in the day room for like 3 days.
What?
Dave, 3 days.
What?
Yeah, they would let me go take a shower, change my clothes, but I couldn't stay in the dorm with the flight. And I was literally pulled out of training altogether while they were trying to decide what to do with me. And then
Wow.
they finally sent me to see staff judge advocate, and he explained, kind of what I was looking at. He says, you violated Article 92 of the UCMJ. You've disobeyed a direct order. That's a court martial offense. So you have two options. Your commander has two options. They can give you a court martial or an Article 15. Article 15 explained it, non-judicial punishment, which might be a fine, some extra duty, or something
Yeah.
like that. He says, if you want to stay in the Air Force, I suggest you take it. Because if you get a court martial, you could probably, get dishonorably discharged or something like that. I'm like, over a haircut? And like, yes. So I said, okay. And when I went to see the commander, interestingly enough, they read me my rights like a criminal, told me what the
Wow.
options were, and they said, we're going to offer you an Article 15. And but he says, I'm just curious because he says, I've heard nothing but good things about you up until this incident. And he said, and it's got everybody baffled. And I says, I know what the regulation says. And I says, my hair was not that long, and it would not be that long. We were at that point now. By the time I'm seeing the commander, we were at that point. And I says, my haircut is still not, I didn't get a haircut, and it's still not out of regs.
Right.
And so he says, well, I never forget this. He said, you were right in principle, but you were wrong in practice. It didn't make sense at the time. I mean, I
Right.
kind of got it,
Yeah.
but he says, I said, well, it was a no-win situation for me then. When you tell me that, it was a no-win situation. And needless to say, I was a smart aleck on top of that. So I was a
My
little,
goodness.
I was a little hot about that.
Yeah.
But I had to digress to tell that story because now I'm pulled out of my flight. So now I've been set back, and I'm with another flight. I finally graduate. I go to tech school. I get to San Angelo, and I'm like, okay, you know what? Let me put this basic training experience behind me. I know I'm not a troublemaker, and I think I've got some potential to do some stuff.
Right.
Everybody welcomes me a good fellow, right? I'm thinking, okay, this will be cool. Let me get into this and figure out what this job is that I've signed up for. And again, the people that were going to be in my class, they said, hey man, you're going to love it. Brooks or Goodfellow is a really small base. Everybody here is pretty much in Intel, so pretty smart people, and you're going to love it. And I think my second or third day, I have a visit with the commander, a welcome visit supposedly with the commander, and I walk in and they read me my rights. That was my welcome. Come in, Airman Knox, you have the right to remain silent. I'm like, I just got here.
Holy cow.
And they said, yeah, your record came before you, and we see that you're a troublemaker. So we want to
Oh,
let you know, we want to let you know that we're going to have our eye on you. I'm like, how am I a troublemaker? And so, needless to say, now I'm angry. And so I'm angry pretty
yeah.
much the whole time I'm there because of this. Because literally, if I blinked wrong, if I'm late, if I'm a minute late getting back,
Yeah.
they were trying to write me up. It was crazy, man. So anyway, I finally graduate. I get to San Antonio to Brooks Air Force Base, my first assignment. And I'm thinking, okay, wow, I'm in the Air Force 3 months, 4 months, and I've had my rights read to me. Can I get this is not what I signed up for. And I get here and everybody's like, man, Brooks is such a best kept secret, man. We're laid back. We're on the far corner here. Beautiful golf course,
Right.
really slow pace. We travel a lot. My unit traveled a lot, TDY. I'm like, you know what? I'm looking forward to this. Yeah, there's a nice welcome by the commander, first sergeant. Yeah, you can't wait to have you on board. I think again, 2 days, 3 days, visit to the commander's office. I walk in, Airman Knox stand at attention. You have the right to remain silent. Again, I just got here. I drove.
Holy
I
cow.
drove from San Angelo to San Antonio 4 hours. I didn't get a ticket. I didn't steal nothing. Why am I being read my rights? Your records say you're a troublemaker. And at that point, I became a troublemaker.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
I'm speechless. I'm without speech. This is crazy.
and so yeah, man. So that was my first enlistment, man. And It wasn't until probably 2.5, almost 3 years in that I finally had somebody say, you got a lot of potential, but you just keep going about it wrong. Because at that point, man, I was really arrogant. I was borderline disrespectful to everybody. I did not care what rank you were. I
Hmm.
did not, Dave, I did not care. And then I didn't care how my uniform was worn, right? And then to add insult to injury, I met my wife's father who had just retired. He was a retired chief, a
Oh,
chief of all things.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I went to see him, man. My hair was growing out now, and I would pick it out. I'd loosen my button. My hat would sit on the back like I was coming out of a McDonald's or something. And I walked up to his house to pick up his daughter. And my wife said, "My father just retired. He was a chief master sergeant." I'm like, "And?"
Yeah. Wow. You are a cocky mug, man.
So yeah, it was crazy, man. But you know what? I caught so much flack for it. Like I said, until this one supervisor sat down with me that, man, they couldn't have paid me to stay in, and so I got out. I got out, but I stayed here in San Antonio, and I was out for about 9 months. But I was still hanging around with guys from the base and guys from my church at the time, and the more I thought about it, I remember between my father-in-law and other supervisors talking about how they would, volunteer for assignments and volunteer for TDYs and, of course, go to school, volunteer to go to school, night school. And I thought, you know what? I knew that there was things I could do. I just wasn't taking advantage of it. And I didn't take advantage of it because I let the start distract me. And so
Yeah.
I said, you know what? I'll come back in. And by this time too, my son was born. Our first child was born, and could really use the help. And
Yeah.
so I decided to come back in. And I was going to come in. I was actually going to change career fields. I was going to go to the Navy, right? That would have been my second choice. But the Navy recruiter pissed me off, man. Can I say that?
Uh-oh.
You might have to
Yeah.
edit that out.
You're good. No, you're good. You're good. You're good. You're good. No worries.
But the Navy recruiter pissed me off, man, because when this was just, I got to tell you, man, he was just a racist dude, man. And because he looked at me and he said, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I said, "I'd like to go into like computer operations or something like that." He's like, "Are you smart enough for that?" I'm thinking, "Really?
Wow.
You asked me that?"
Wow.
And they made me take the ASVAB all over again.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I took the ASVAB, and after I took it, he said, "Well, let me pull your scores," because he asked me. I said, "Well, I'd like to get in as soon as possible." So he pulled my scores, and he came in and he shook his head and he's like, "Man, you just really ate the test up." I'm like, "Okay, so what does that mean?" I says, "What job can I get?" And he said, "Man, with scores like this, any job you want." I'm like, "Oh, so I am smart enough to go into computer operations."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so he says, "Oh yeah, yeah." And so Air Force recruiter was next door, and I went to ask him, and I says, "Hey, if I want to come back in, how soon can I come back in?" He said, "You can come in tomorrow." I'm like, "You know what? I'm going back in the Air Force."
Wow.
And so that was the deciding factor, man. The Navy, like, you're already judging me. I just went through this, right? And
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
already
Yeah.
judging me. So
Well,
no, I,
I thought for sure, Chris, you were going to say, and then I walked to the Navy recruiter's office and they were going to read me my rights. I thought for sure that's where you were going to go with
I
that.
felt that at first too, though, man. The way he came out, when he came out with my scores, that's what I thought he was going to do
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, we
Like,
got a
well, we
note. We
saw,
got a note here that says you were a troublemaker in the Air Force.
yeah, yeah. But that was the deciding factor. I came back in, and I said I came in with a mission, right? I'm
Mhm.
gonna learn and use all that the Air Force will offer. And so, then it was like, deciding to go back to school, volunteering for the assignments, and having a say so in where I go.
Right.
And that's what I started doing. And so I started making the most of it. So fast forward, now I'm getting toward the latter half of my career, and I'm still back in Intel. I had been trying to transfer out, though. I still wanted to do something else throughout
Hmm.
my whole career. And every time I would try to transfer out, I was in a career. Our career fair was always flagged as critical, so I could never transfer. And even after I went to the academy, I told the instructors there, I like, "Man, I would love to do this. We'd love to have you." And I applied, and they denied it. And I was working at the time at Security Hill here in San Antonio, and
Hmm.
I worked in the commander's office, the AIA at the time, Air Intelligence Agency commander, I worked in the protocol office. So I was working directly for the two-star. And my job was NCOIC of ceremony. So every year we would do, or every month we would do a big retirement ceremony. And there were other events where the general would have to make, public appearances and things like that. But I was responsible for that, for any public appearance he made. And I'm probably in the job about 6 months, 4 to 6 months. And every time I'm doing it, I'm trying to improve something, right? Make it a little more efficient. And this had to be the biggest ceremony I had done. Probably 12 retarees. We had the band there, Air Force Band,
Oh, wow.
all of their
Yeah. Yeah.
family, the troops assembled, all of this. That was my job, coordinating all of that. And but of course, once it starts, it's on autopilot. And I'm typically just standing in the back of the courtyard there, just watching it roll until it's
Mhm.
over. And when those things start, generally the first thing they do is the awards, right? The retirees are getting, commendation medal,
Mhm.
meritorious medal, something like that.
Yep.
And when they walked out and stood in line and they said, "Attention to orders," my head said, "Oh man, the awards. They're still sitting on my desk."
Oh, good Lord.
And so I'm running through the headquarters building to grab all the awards. 12 awards, man. And when the aide turns to get the awards, he's like, "There's nothing here." So the general played it off, made some kind of joke or whatever. Audience laughed. I run down there, run to the side, put them out. The ceremony is done. But then there's this buzz, man. Somebody gonna get fired. Somebody gonna get fired.
Right.
And the general had just got promotion. He was getting his third star and going back to DC. And he said, "You know what? I like Chris, but I don't think he's going to work with my replacement. So you know what? Let's find him something else to do." And he said, "Whatever he wants to do." And I was trying to. It was a choice between the band or the academy, and I couldn't get an audition at the time at the band because that was where I really wanted to go.
Hmm.
And so when they reached out to the commandant of the academy and they said, "Do you have a slot for him?" They said, "Yes, he could start tomorrow." And I literally had orders in a week, man. And I went to the academy.
And what year in your 20-year career was this we talking about now?
90, 93, 92, 93,
Okay.
late 92, early 93.
All right. All right. Did you have any deployment? Were you ever in any deployments during any of your career? None? No deployments? Okay.
It was funny, man. I was coming back from Germany when Desert Shield started, Desert
Okay.
Storm, Desert Shield.
Yep.
And so I got back and they said, "Yeah, I'm checking into my unit." They said, "Yeah, we just bombed Iraq." I'm like, "Who bombed Iraq?" "We did." And what? And they're like, "Yeah, we were in a conflict called Desert Storm, I think it was first, Desert Shield, whatever it was."
Yeah. Desert
And
Shield. Yeah.
but again, because of the work that I did, we weren't really going to go that far. And the unit that was over in Europe was the first they were closest to the activity, right?
Right.
And I don't think even any of those folks actually got any closer, to the Middle East than
Mhm.
where we were. And and then at that point, shortly after that was when I got the instructor assignment, and so I never had to deploy because of that. And I that's where I retired from the NCO Academy here at Lackland.
Nice. Nice. Cool. So, wow. Wow. I can't, between the telling the TI, I really want not to get a haircut, every place you go to renew your rights, you really had a heck of a start.
I did,
That's just
man.
incredible.
I
That's
did.
incredible.
I did.
All right. Let's talk about your road to blue. Had you seen a TIB show before you even started doing talent shows? Had you seen them at
I
all?
did. I did. I saw a couple actually. I think I did see one at Randolph. And it was interesting because when I saw that show, I'm looking at a guy in the cast. He was one of the tech members. I'm like, I know this guy. And sure enough, it was a guy in my senior class from my high
Oh,
school.
what are the
And so
odds?
he was on the tech. He was I don't know if he was sound tech or staging tech, but yeah, he was in the tech team. And he told me about it. I'm like, "Man, how'd you get this job?" And I don't know why Thompson Blue in and of itself did not register. I still did not understand what was involved and how to actually
Mhm.
apply. But then I learned about the talent shows after that.
Yeah.
And I think it was before I went to Korea. That show was before I went to Korea because when I got to Korea, I met a guy, and I think you know him. He's a prior also, but he didn't do the tour. That was when they also did like the talent show too, because he was part of Music Express.
Hmm.
if you remember that.
Yep.
He's a trombone, sax player, keyboards,
Hmm.
and we were stationed together in Korea, and we did a little band over there. And he told me he had worked with Thompson Blue, and he said, "Man, you ought to try out." He says they always are looking for guitar players. That is one of the hardest band slots to fill. And again, Dave, I couldn't read. I couldn't read
Hmm.
charts. I barely could read, rhythms
Yep.
as far as what I was playing or to know what I was playing or the theory behind the chords. And he spent a lot of time working with me, and we did a little band. We did a play, and he was the music director for the play, and it was Grease, interestingly enough.
Okay.
And when they brought out the music, he said, "Chris, you're gonna play?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll play." He said, "You can play this stuff, man. It's all this '50s rock and roll." And he handed me the music book, and I'm like, "Renee, I can't read." He said, "But you can play it. I've heard you play it, so I know you can play it. You
Right.
just don't know what you're playing."
Yeah.
And so literally, man, he would play all of the parts on piano, and I would just play it by ear,
Right.
right? And I learned the whole show that way. But I could see I'm starting to figure it out because of the little bit that I could read, right? And so I definitely could read more of a rhythm chart now because of that. And he
Hmm.
pushed me, he said, "But dude, if you can get to worldwide, I'll get you on the tour." And so it was my mission at that point to try to compete. And so when I came back to San Antonio, I did my first talent show in San Antonio. I didn't get past the base level. I
What year is
forgot what.
this?
This had to be 84.
Okay.
Yeah, 83, 84, something like that.
So your first
And
talent show was in 83 or 84. Okay. All right.
yeah, and then I came to Germany after that. I came to Germany in '86, and then I think I competed my first show in '87, maybe '88, and it was '88 because I did not advance in '88. We had a death in the family, and I wasn't able to advance, and so I missed out on that. But I was determined to come back '89,
Hmm.
and
And that
and then
and
80,
that's where our
89 was
worlds collide.
yeah, yeah.
Um, what made you decide? So did you do talent shows other than the time you just addressed? Did you do talent shows between 84 and 89 exclusively? Did you try every year, 85, 86, 87, 88, every one of those years, or did you skip a year?
There's a couple of years I skipped because I know I didn't compete when I first got to Germany, and like I said, it was probably '83, '84 when I did my first talent show here. But then I was also working with another band. I was trying to put together a band here, and I was really involved in like a gospel group, and so that had us busy, the
Hmm.
gospel group here in San Antonio, and so that was another reason why I really didn't do much. But again, I felt very limited in my playing ability too. I was just playing
Right.
with, like I said, those guys. So if somebody had asked me to play a variety of stuff, I really couldn't play it. Believe it or not, at that time, I was playing mostly by ear. If I
Yeah.
heard it, I could play it. But
Yep.
don't ask me what I was playing.
Yep.
Don't ask me the chords. I
Yeah.
could tell you maybe major, minor,
Yep.
dominant chord, but now don't start trying to change keys on me.
Yeah.
Don't mess me up like that.
Yeah.
I'd learn a song in
Don't
a key.
modulate. Don't do anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, no.
All right, folks. So you might have noticed there was an edit there. Well, I don't do a lot of edits, so people are going, "Hey, there was an edit on Dave's podcast." So last night we had a little technical issue because of a power situation we had here because of storms we're having here in Pennsylvania. So I had to close up shop here and then restart again here tonight with the great Chris Knox Sr. Um,
Great.
so so Chris, we're talking about getting you to the 1989 USAFE talent contest. What were the talent shows? Did you do the regionals or did you just do the basic USAFE talent show before we got to the USAFE level? And did you play the same piece all the way up to the USAFE level in '89?
So I started at base level. I
Okay.
did base level, I did regional, and I did USAFE.
Okay.
It seemed like there was another one, base, regional, USAFE. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That sounds
and
right.
um, and so yeah, it was pretty cool, man. Yes, it was the same piece. I think the difference there though was, in 1988, I think I did, George Benson, Disco Masquerade, and I competed then as a vocalist of a company, right? But I was doing the
Oh,
scat and all of that, and I took second, and I
oh,
came
very
back
nice.
with a purpose in '89, and then I still hadn't done a lot of work with the Air Force Band, who was actually as backing everybody
Mhm.
there in USAFE too, and so I just really wanted to make this easy, and so I sequenced my track, if you remember, and I
I
did something
don't.
really simple, and came in with the intent of, I need to be more performance and not so much technical,
Yeah,
and I thought, man, folks would be impressed to be able to do the scatting and the solo and all of that, but
yeah,
play through the changes, singing, and I said, no, let me just simplify this a little bit more. So I did something really simple. I had a very simple arrangement, Ain't No Sunshine. I sequenced it, and so I took my keyboard sequencer workstation on stage.
hmm
That way I knew it would work. And then the thing that I did different is I had a MIDI guitar. And so I
ah,
had my guitar connected to my keyboard also. And with the flip of a switch, now I have both the guitar sound and the keyboard sound.
right. That's
And
creative.
and so that was the other thing I wanted to do a little different. So my keyboard was on stage. I started the sequence. I played through the song, and then when it got to the solo, I'd switch to where now you had like a vibe xylophone playing on the solo,
Mhm.
right? And then I switched back toward the end of the song, and that's what got me through to USAFE.
Wow.
And then, it's funny though because at I think it was either command or regionals, there was a technical glitch with the tech crew in that I started the sequence and I knew it was playing. I could hear it in the house, but I couldn't hear it on stage.
Ah,
And so that was crazy, but of course, I learned at that point, keep playing.
you're
If you
playing.
can't hear it, just keep playing, right? And so I'm really trying to use the house as a reference, and I kept playing. I got through it, but man, I came off stage livid
Oh,
because
I
I
bet.
because I couldn't hear, And I think you remember Bernie was handling a lot of the production stuff
Oh,
there
I
in
remember
in
very well.
USAFE. And
Yeah.
so Bernie, and again, I don't remember if it was command or regionals, but at any rate, whichever one it was, Bernie's like, he's going to go back on. And first, like, do you want to go back on? I'm like, do I want to go back on? Then I thought, you know what the hell? And so I
Yeah.
did. And then I went back on, and they like, make sure we can hear it. And so they pressed it. I could hear it in the monitors. The MC came out and they spoke like you did. Hey,
Yeah.
technical difficulties. We're going to do it again.
Yep.
And then the second time around, it was flawless. And
Nice.
then of course when I got to USAFE, not only did we do the contest, but then after that, that's when they put together the showcase tour. They were
Right.
still
That
doing
was
the
my next
showcase.
question. The
So
showcase. Yeah.
yeah, so USAFE has a showcase. I think TAC had a showcase. SAC had a showcase. I'm not sure if ATC had one, but I know SAC and TAC had one also.
hmm
And so I was part of the showcase band.
Yeah. Who was the bass player in the showcase band? Was it Tom Walker? Was it Bo?
Yep, it was Tom. Yep.
Quick story about Tom. Guess whose bass he borrowed for the instrumental audition with Bernie?
Is that right? Uh,
My big red
what,
Aria Pro 2 bass. He borrowed. We were sitting next to each other waiting to see Bernie, and he goes, "Can I borrow your bass?" I'm like, "Sure."
well, you
And
know
he
what's
kept
funny
it
though?
down.
It was funny. It was disappointing, but it worked out good in the end, right? So we did the showcase, and at that point, they had mentioned who was actually going to go forward to
Mhm.
Worldwide. And I want to say toward the end of the showcase tour, they pulled me aside and said I wasn't going to go to Worldwide as in the category that I competed in as an instrumental soloist, but they were
Mhm.
going to send the showcase band forward.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because there was a band out of Italy which had Steve and Lorenzo and somebody else, and and I made the showcase band,
Mhm.
and I think somebody, it might have been Tom, because Tom did something else too, Tom Walker, and so
Yeah.
we
He's
became the
in.
showcase band, and that band went forward to Worldwide.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
And so I didn't compete as an instrumental soloist at Worldwide, but the band competed.
Yeah.
And what was crazy is Marvin was on drums. Marvin Shield was on drums. Steve Smith on keyboards, and Lorenzo Kilgore on sax. And so we were the
Okay.
band, and we didn't even get Roger or Wilco. That was the crazy thing. We were really good. I thought we had a good set. We had a good layout for our show,
Hmm.
but none of us we didn't get the Roger or the Wilco at Worldwide. But the whole band got selected for the tour.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
What was the piece you guys played?
it was something that they had put together because the band that came out of Italy, or England. Actually, the band was out of England.
Okay.
Um, yeah, because Marvin and Lorenzo came out of England, out of Chicks Hands, I think, Mildenhall, something like that. But yeah, it was something that maybe I think Lorenzo wrote or something. Lorenzo or Steve, somebody,
Hmm.
and it was funny too because when we got selected, we didn't know that we were going to be on two different tours, and so Marvin and I ended up on the overseas tour, and the rest of the guys ended up on stateside. And in fact, Marvin didn't get selected initially. There was somebody
Oh,
else on drums, and then when we got to Lackland, they said the drummer wasn't coming, and then Marvin came, and so yeah. But yeah,
wow.
the whole band made the tour. And funny story too, man. You talked about Tom with your bass.
Hmm.
When we got to Worldwide and we were doing auditions, I competed on guitar. I auditioned for guitar and I auditioned for bass. Just for S&G.
Yep.
And then messing around on Showcase with Marvin and with Tom Walker. I knew Tom played guitar. I knew he played bass. I knew he played drums,
Yep.
and I was really impressed. He played all of them really well. And then Marvin played drums and played bass and played guitar. And
Wow.
so I think I was one of the first ones to audition on guitar. And those auditions, those instrumental auditions were long, right?
Hmm.
And toward the end, Marvin came to me and said, "Hey man, can I use your guitar?" Because I took my own guitar to Worldwide. And so he
Yeah.
said, "Can I use your guitar for the instrumental audition?" And I think he was the last one to audition on guitar. And it was late into the night. And he took my guitar, man, and he put it on and had it sitting way down low like a rock player, like way down
Yep.
here.
Yep.
And so you know how they do, right? They says, "Are you ready?" And Marvin like, "Are you ready?" To Chief and to Bernie, and I'm like, "Oh hell," right? And Marvin, man, Marvin did this thing, man. He said, "Yeah," and I'm like, "Oh hell, man!" He just stole my spot with my guitar.
Wow. Wow.
Man, it was a great audition. Man, he killed it. Man, he went up there confident and he
Yep.
nailed it right. And the last couple of times I talked to him, I remind him of that. I'm like, you know what? You taught me a lesson, man. I ain't let nobody else use my acts to audition or anything. You want to sit in? You got your stuff. If you can get your stuff, no, you can't sit in. You don't even
Yeah.
sit in with my stuff and play
Yeah.
better than me.
Yeah.
you know. But yeah, man, and he made the tour also, and so that was cool too because during staging, before the stage site went out, both groups would work together also, and so
Right.
we were sitting side by side, going over music, all of this kind of stuff, man. It was great, and so
Wow.
between Tom and Marvin, and I'm trying to
So that
think
was a
who
what?
else was there on bass.
Oh,
Sandman was there.
Sandman. Yeah.
Sandman, yeah,
Yeah.
Sandman was supposed to go
Uh-huh.
and then had like I think a family issue, and so Sandman didn't go. And then we brought in Andre Johnson, and he ended up making our tour.
Wow.
Andre and then we brought in Amos Singleton.
Dude, that's a well-rounded group of musicians right there. Holy
Yeah,
cow.
and we
Wow.
had oh gosh, I see his post all the time, and I'm drawing a blank on his name on sax because Lorenzo went stateside. Man, he's gonna kill me too. That I'm drawing a blank on his name right
Oh,
this
that's
minute.
okay. We'll
But
figure it out. It'll pop to you.
yeah, but so we had a killer band,
Yeah, you did.
and
Wow.
it was so funny too because every chance we got, man, we started trying to tweak, the arrangement. And so what can we do? And we had to learn how to give space,
Hmm.
to each other. Oh, I got to tell you a funny story too. And during Showcase, when we were getting ready for Showcase, um, Bernie said, "Okay, here's the songs, right?" And this is where I was growing as a musician, Dave. It was so funny. Bernie says, okay, here's some music we're going to start learning, right? And you know how they typically do. They give you a track, and that was it. Here's a cassette. We didn't
Mhm.
have somebody like Terry or whomever, Barry writing charts. He
Yep.
just gave us a cassette. And so we had spent literally all day working on the music. Bernie came in, let me hear what you got, right? So we started playing. Man, we thought we were grooving, right? And you know how he does, whoa, stop,
Yep.
stop,
Yep.
stop.
Yep.
And keyboard, what you
Classic.
playing? And I think, Steve did something like, man, I'm playing like a C over D and something like that. Guitar, what are you playing? I don't know, I'm playing a D something, right? And like, why you playing a D chord and he playing a C chord? One of y'all ain't playing it right. Figure it out and walked out. And I'm like, oh man, what? And that was all he said. And
Yeah.
so Steve was like, I'm like, Steve, what are you playing? He's like a C over D chord. And I'm trying to figure it out on guitar. And I'm like, that's the same as a D11. And he's like, oh, you're right. And so we literally stayed up all night, went through every song, me and Steve,
Wow.
and broke it apart. And so now I'm trying to think like a keyboard player
Right.
to figure out all of the chords that he was playing. And I still didn't know a whole lot of voicings and things at that point. But yeah, we spent all night. And so, of course, Bernie came in first thing in the morning. All right, what y'all playing? And we naming the chords exactly, me and Steve, right? And that was the big thing. But that was a big eye-opening lesson for me.
Oh, I can imagine. I can imagine. Yeah, it's interesting because the '89 U Safety show. I mean, if you were an instrumentalist, you had to go through Bernie. You had to go through
Right,
Bernie.
right.
And I remember my sit down with Bernie, and he just went through all these things. Show me bossa nova in C, and I'm like, okay, what? What?
Right?
Bossa nova? Never even thought about that. Never even entered bossa nova into my mind. It was like he was hitting me with all these different things that I would never even thought about even trying to prepare for. But yeah, both years I went to USAFE, I never got through Bernie. Took second place in the categories, but never got through Bernie. Never got
Yeah,
through him.
yeah.
But still
I'm
remember
surprised that
doing
I
that.
did, quite honestly, because same thing, give me a little rock stuff, and I wasn't even much of a rock player. So,
Right.
power chords, right? Turn my
Yep.
distortion on, get it
Yep.
screaming. And I didn't even use a lot of effects too, because that was another thing he got on me about. By the time we got to um, um, USAFE, because I saw him at regionals too, and he's like, man, you don't use nothing, you don't use effects. And I really didn't.
Mhm.
Like, man, you don't use a chorus or nothing. And so I told my wife, okay, I need something. I said, go find me a chorus. Because I didn't know where a music store too, where we were in
Right.
Italy or somewhere, or not Italy, but Bitburg in Germany. And so my wife went out and bought me a chorus, and she came back and said, here's a present for you. I'm like, Brandy, look, I got a chorus.
Yeah.
And that was,
Yeah.
that
Now what
was,
do I do with it?
yeah, what am I gonna do with it, right? And of course, I had distortion on my amp, so I would do that. But yeah, man, he gave me a hard time about using effects and not using effects and things like that. But saying he took me through through the licks, play some country, and I knew a couple of little licks, they
Yeah.
didn't do rock and roll or,
Yeah.
boogie woogie kind of country, and
Yep.
play some rock and again power chords and distorted just licks that I knew. Of course, when he said play something funky, that was my
That's your
forte. So
area. Yeah.
I could
Yep.
do that with the best of them.
Yeah.
And there was something else he had me do, right? Let me hear you solo. And again, I kind of stumbled through that. And then like, all right, so I was surprised one to make the showcase, but even more surprised when I made the TIB
Yeah.
tour.
Wow. Wow. How was just real briefly before we get on to, the further events past USAFE, what was the showcase tour like for you?
It was a lot of fun actually. We had a really good group. We had a couple other priors too because we had vocalists. Um, I think it was Eddie Lawson who had just come off the '88 tour. So he
Okay.
was on. We had oh gosh, Labonnie Dalton. She was a
Yeah.
prior, had been on tour, I think maybe '86, and it was somebody else that was on tour. Um, in the vocalist. So that we had three, maybe four of the six or eight vocalists that had been priors, and so that was nice, you know.
Very helpful.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
we had a really funky set, as you can imagine, with Bernie putting all of the stuff together. You
Mhm.
know, wasn't a lot of dialogue either. You know, unlike some of the other shows, you know, whether it's Showcase or TIB, there wasn't a whole lot of dialogue. It was like a quick thing to just set up the song, and then we were right into it. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that was nice.
And that, folks, explains why every time you Safety went to Worldwide, they were so polished. Right
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
You guys, you Safety was always a team to beat at Worldwide. Without a shadow of a doubt. Joanne Mellon's team was a team to go for to try to
yep,
beat. Yeah,
yeah.
you guys were, top of the charts every time at Worldwide, at least in my memory.
But you know what, man? In all honesty, the SAC team was good too, because the SAC
Yeah.
did a showcase also. Now I don't think their showcase tour, you know, prior to Worldwide was as long as ours, because we were on tour in Europe for like 3 weeks before Worldwide. So that's how much of a gap. You figure we had about a week of staging, then we hit the road for about 3 weeks, and then we came back for about another week to get ready for Worldwide.
Right.
And so that 3 weeks of you know, going around was really, really nice. But I know SAC Showcase did something similar. And you know, I was equally impressed with the SAC band and the vocalists and all of that too when I heard about their showcase.
Yep. So do you remember getting your trophy at USAFE? Do you remember
I
that?
did. Oh, yeah.
Hit me with it.
Oh, man. I don't, you know what? If I had thought about it, I'd have brought it, but they're in my garage. All my trophies are in my
Yeah.
garage. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was funny, man, because between, you know, competing stateside that one year and then competing in Europe, man, I have a ton of second place trophies. And that year was the only year that I got first place trophies. 89 was the only year I got like 3 or 4 first place trophies.
Yeah.
And so, and what's weird is the second place trophies look bigger than the first place trophies. And so, you know, you look at it and you think, man, look, you got all this first place. I'm like, no, Reed, they're second place. They're second place.
Yeah.
Second place. I was always coming in second. And I would compete like a lot of people, multiple categories. So
Yep.
I think in
I did the
'88, I
same thing.
competed vocalist self-accompanied, male vocalist, vocal group, vocal duo, something like that, instrumental. So I competed like 4 categories, you know,
Right.
took second place in all of them.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I got a bunch of second places up here on the wall too.
Yeah.
A bunch of them. All right. So you get through Showcase, you're on your way to Worldwide. And I always love to ask the priors when they get to their first Worldwide, what if they remember the opening ceremonies, all that, all the grandeur to an opening ceremony. Do you remember your first impressions of Worldwide when you first got there?
Yeah,
Or was
I
it
thought
boring?
I was really amazed, probably a little bit overwhelmed at the production that went behind it.
Mhm.
Because,
It's
you know,
scary.
it was. And I'm thinking, man, am I really going to be good enough to hang with all of these people here? And
Mhm.
as you know, too, particularly as you go through each level, you know, when you get past base level, and you know now you're going to be competing with people from other bases, and of course at the region or command level, and you know the talent is getting better and better at each level.
Yep.
I'm like, wow, man, I can't imagine what the competition is going to look like. And then, of course, when you're sitting in the audience, particularly if you're not in the first or the first day's show, or even the rehearsals, when you're sitting through the rehearsals and going through the sound check with the band, and now you hear some of the other performers, you're like, man, they are good. They are good. And I'm thinking, wow. So yeah, the whole experience was a lot to take in. Opening ceremonies,
Yep.
all of the things leading up to the first show, it was a lot to take in.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. There's a lot. I mean, I know I had it when I got to my first Worldwide. I had a very big imposter syndrome. Like I shouldn't be
Yeah,
here. Like, why am I here?
yeah,
Did I
that's
luck
a good way
out?
to put it.
Was it a luck? Was it my skill and my want to be here got me here, or was it luck?
Yeah,
It had a
yeah.
very weird vibe to it for me. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that. I like that imposter syndrome because when I look at a lot of the talent that has come through since then, and there were some others even before that, but definitely some of the folks that I've gotten to know since I went through, Man, when
Right.
I look at the talent that was coming through after that, I'm like, wow, wow, what are you guys doing in the Air Force?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they were just so good, especially the instrumentalists. I
Yep.
mean, there were some amazing vocalists too, but the instrumentalists were really the ones that impressed me. And I'm thinking of the drummers and guitar players and bass players, that I followed and still stay in touch with from time to time.
Cool. So who worked with you? Did they? I don't even know. Did they have team leaders back then in the '89 and the late '80s? Like,
No.
how did you guys navigate through worldwide back then?
I mean, of course, we had our command team lead, Joanne
Yeah.
Mellon and
Yeah.
and oh gosh, Debbie Southey was still
Debbie Southey.
there.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and so those were our leads for when we got there. But once we got to worldwide, or once we got in staging, really, there was a band leader that was appointed, and they kind of helped us run rehearsals. But outside of that, at worldwide itself, no, we just had between Debbie and Joanne, they were the ones that kind of kept us in check, made us
Got
ensure
you
that
to
we
your
got to where we need
appointments.
to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. Wow. Do you remember? And I love this. I always love this question. Do you remember your? Did you? Oh, hang on. Did you have a interview with Chief at
I
Worldwide?
did. I did.
Oh, and you
I
know
did.
what? You're one of the very few priors that remembers that,
Yeah, I
which
did.
astounds me. That blows me away. I want to hear
Yeah.
about it.
It was that too was a little intimidating because I saw him. He might have even been in Europe when we did the youth safety competition because I remember his face. But definitely, of course, watching him navigate through all of the behind the scenes events and whatnot at Worldwide,
Mhm.
and just watching how everybody would jump when he walked in the room. I'm like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
And then
Everybody,
when they said, yeah, and they said that's Chief, and I'm like, Chief? Why do they call him Chief? Was he Chief Master Sergeant or what?
yeah.
And it's like that. No, that's his title. He's Chief Air Force Entertainment. I'm like, okay. And every now and then I might have caught a glimpse of him talking, other than like when he was leading up one of the auditions, between the dance auditions or something like that. And so again, everybody seems to be walking around on eggshells around him, or most everybody. And
Mhm.
so that too can be a little intimidating. And so yeah, he called me in, and it was a real brief visit though. I think he was asking me why I should be there, and do I think I was good enough? And I said, well, I obviously made it this far, so I must have been good enough to make it this far. But time will tell if I'm good enough to stay, and I think I deserve as much of a chance as anybody else. That's really how I
Wow.
felt at the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so he says, "All right, wish me well," and that was it, man.
Wow. Wow.
That's all that I remember. There might have
Yeah.
been
Yeah.
more
It
that
was
was
probably
said,
more. Yeah. It was
but
probably
that
more.
that's definitely what I remember.
So what do you remember about the closing banquets when you got the big call up?
Wow, that was probably the most overwhelming thing for me because for as much as I'd been wanting to do it, I was definitely one of the oldest competitors at the time because I already was a staff sergeant.
Mhm.
And so I knew I was one of the older competitors. And then, I was stationed in Germany. So my wife was there, my two kids, my two small kids, because
Mhm.
my daughter was turning 4. And so my son was about 7, right? 6.
Mhm.
My daughter was turning 4, my son was turning 7. So two small children, my wife's there. That's really the first time she'd been out of the country. And then on top of that, to find out that staging was going to be in San Antonio, which is where her family was.
Oh, that worked out.
Yeah, so that was a weird thing. And like everybody else, how they'd call your name. Sometimes they would reference your act or your song title or something like that. And so I forgot how they said something. My song was "Ain't No Sunshine," and there was something to the effect that there won't be "Ain't No Sunshine" once this member gets onto the cast. And then of course they called my name, and yeah, that was a little overwhelming. And then once they finished calling all of the names, trying to call my wife, and that was before all of the things that we have available to us now. So trying to call her long distance from Minot back to Germany, to
Hmm.
tell her that I'd been selected. And then and to think that, man, I might be gone for close to a year. I'd already been gone almost a year, with the competition and showcase, and
Yep.
now at least another 7 months, 7, 8 months, right?
You
And
got
so
to
I said,
break
you know
that to
what?
her.
Huh?
You got to break that to her, right? You got
Right,
to let her know. You got to let her know
right.
what's up. Yeah.
And so when I called her, and I think I woke her up because of the time difference, I said, I think I'm going to decline. And she's like, you better not. You've been doing this. You've been wanting to do this, and you're not going to come back and say I stifled your dream. So no, do it.
Yeah.
And so yeah, man, I went on and I went on with her blessing. You know,
Wow. Yeah. God bless the woman behind us, huh?
right, right,
Man, they put up with a lot from us priors, folks. The spouses put up a lot with us. They really
and it's,
do.
it's you know she especially after we came back. Well, even when the tour came back overseas, when we got when we started our tour back in Europe, she was right there. I mean, she met us there at Ramstein, and all during the rehearsals there at Ramstein before we actually started hitting our bases. She was there every
Mhm.
day, man, with the kids and all of that. And it was so funny because once we hit the road too, she started following us, man.
Oh, you had your own groupies.
I did, man.
Yeah.
And so
That's
all through
awesome.
Germany, man, she went to every show in Germany.
Oh, that's cool.
She followed behind the bus. I tried to get her on the bus, but they wouldn't let her get on the bus with the
Yeah.
kids. And so she said, "All right, I'll just follow you." And so she did, man. She followed the bus and went to every site in Germany that we went to.
Did
And
did she did she ever say, did she ever critique your shows to you after in private? Did she ever say, you weren't as sharp tonight there, Chris, as you were last night? Did she ever
no,
do anything like that?
no, not
Or-
really, not really.
Well, I mean, my wife would admit, my wife would, oh yeah, you need to work the stage more, Dave. That's how my wife would have been.
I think once she realized where I was on stage and the
Uh-huh.
fact that I really didn't move much, most of the band rarely moved.
Yeah.
We were probably one of the few bands that still had a really active part in the whole backdrop of the theme of the show, because ours
Right.
was the whole soda shop, and we were dressed
Murphy's
like
Grill.
workers in the show soda shop,
Yep.
kind of thing. And so, we had a lot more room to kind of interact with the other cast members who were on the set.
Right.
The two
Yep.
keyboards were, behind counters, because that's where the keyboards were hidden. But for me
Mhm.
and Andre, between songs, man, we literally put our guitars down and be playing handsy with whoever's up there, talking
Mhm.
smack, man. They'd be talking to us, we'd be talking to them like, what is this? Can you believe this? Sometimes we like, man, I'm tired. I'm tired too, But from the audience, man, we're just in a dialogue like you'd expect kids to do, in that kind of setting. But
Yep.
the crazy stuff we be talking about up there, man, it's just like, oh yeah, I need this break. If I had to slow down, if they let me lay down across this table, I'd lay down and go to sleep in a second. Watch,
Yep.
you know,
Boom. Gone.
stuff, stuff like that.
Yeah. All right. So you're on your way to staging now. You get to staging. And I always like to hear instrumentalists' point of view of how their staging was and your reaction, like after like the first few days of staging, what you thought was really going on in staging. So give me your memories of staging.
So the good side of it was that the work that we had did in Showcase really helped.
Mhm.
What I did not know was I hadn't met Terry Griffey yet, and I didn't know we were going to have all of these charts. What I forgot to mention, though, from Showcase was when Bertie came up there and ripped us all up about what we were playing. Then he came back, I think, later that second day and said, "Do you guys have any charts?" And we like, "Charts? No. Nobody wrote charts? No. How are you going to make sure you're playing the right stuff?" I'm like, "Why do I need a chart?" Right? He said, "You should probably have it as a reference to at least till you have it memorized." And of course, I didn't know up until that point, Dave, I had no idea Bernie was a guitar player.
You no, shut up.
I did not. And I was wondering why he would look at me so hard. And
He was
then,
always
and then he,
eyeballing you.
right, he's eyeballing me the hardest, right? And so it wasn't up until that point that I realized he was a guitar player. And he's like, "Yo, P, you know how you said that? Yo, P, give me that thing.
Yeah.
You got some sheet music?" And I happen to have a book of some blank sheet music. And so he went down, I forgot, I think we were doing like Ruby Baby, and something else. And I watched him literally with the guitar write a chart. And I'm like, wow, okay, that's what we want. Okay. And so at that point too, I'm working with Steve and we're trying to write a chart. So now when we get to worldwide, fast forward to your question, they told us, Terry was going to be working with us and Bernie was just going to rehearse us, but Terry was writing all these charts.
Right.
And we look up and like, here's the music. And we start working on it like, oh, this will be a piece of cake. And here's when we learn it and then throw it away. And then like the next day, here's another. And then about 2 days later, here's 5 charts. I'm like, five
Yeah.
charts? We got to learn all of this. And they
Yeah.
kept coming.
Yeah.
They kept coming. I'm like, oh, dang. And then, of course, just as we learn it, Chief wants to hear it, and then he's like, okay, no, stop. We're going to change this part.
Yep.
Terry, I want to do this. And so Terry would come in with the music. All right, you guys, scratch this section out. Then we're going to go back to this section, change this part. And of course, everybody's writing all over the charts. And I'm like, this is crazy. Why would you cut up the song like that? Again, not knowing how they were building
Yeah.
the show or building the
Right.
medleys and things
Yep.
like that. And
Did you
then,
did you get to the point in staging where you figured out that I just need to learn a verse, a chorus, and then that's it?
by the time Stateside left, I did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we had cut up so much stuff at that point, and
Yeah.
of course we had the same show, but yeah, I'm like, okay, now I see what we were doing. But one of the funniest points, man, we were rehearsing in the auditorium there, and I think we were at the Bob Hope Center at this point rehearsing, and Terry and Bernie and Tom were sitting there talking, or it might have even been JB. I don't know if you remember JB,
Oh
but
yeah.
JB
Yeah.
was there too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And they were sitting way in the middle of the auditorium, and you could hear, they were talking. You could see them talking. You couldn't hear them. We were playing our stuff, and all of a sudden we look up, and you see this big band stop, stop, stop,
Yeah.
and Terry is like, guitar. You're on measure 39. That chord, you're playing a B minor 7. It should be minor 7 flat 5. You should hear this tone. Da, 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 da. And I'm like, what? And of course I'm playing from memory now, so I got to pull up the chart, go
Yeah.
find the section.
Yeah.
Okay, find the progression that he's talking about. See the chord. Yeah, it says B minor 7 flat 5 or whatever. And so now I'm trying to play it. I'm thinking the B minor 7 works, right?
Yeah.
And that one note, he heard that one note and then sang it correctly. Because I'm like,
Yeah.
it should be, this note here. And he's singing it, and I'm like, ding, ding. Like, dang, I'm just looking like, he's singing the exact note.
Yeah.
And they're like, that's perfect pitch. And I'm like, I've seen it, but I had never heard it. I'd never heard
Yeah.
anybody or seen anybody with it. So that
Yeah.
that freaked me out, man. That freaked me out. I'm like, and he
Terry.
knew where it was on the chart. That's the other
Yeah.
thing.
Well,
He knew exactly
Terry
where it was
saw
on the
music.
chart.
He just didn't hear music. He saw music.
Yeah,
He visualized. It was amazing. It's just simply amazing how he did that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Crazy.
that was probably the most mind-blowing thing about staging for me was
Yeah.
working with Terry
Very.
and the way he would come in and just, with his quirky self,
Yeah. Yeah.
with his quirky jokes and what have you. Between him and Bernie, Bernie would be on this end of the spectrum. Terry would be on
Correct.
this end of the spectrum.
Correct. Yep. That's exactly how it was in '93. Exactly how it was in '93.
Yeah,
Terry would come in at 2:00 in the morning, put 5 charts and 5 cassettes down, and say, I'll be back at 4:00. I'm
yeah,
like, and it
yeah.
was, and me never playing jazz anything or country anything in my life. I'm
Right.
like, what? Somehow we got through that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I will
it gave
tell
me
you the other
sweats
thing
just talking
too.
about it.
The other thing too, man, that was a big takeaway for me in staging, especially was the country stuff.
Mhm.
Because I'm like, man, we got a lot of country music. I'm like, really, all this country? And I had not really played country. I had never really
Yeah.
played. I never really
I
listened
had
to it.
neither.
And then I'm listening to it, man. It was like driving guitar parts, the country rock, right, where the guitar would
Yep.
start it, really
Yep.
killer solos. And I'm trying to learn these solos note for note, man. I'm like, dude, man, these guys are playing. I had no appreciation for how good these serious country players were until I tried
Right.
to play a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
And I was
No.
determined to get it right. I mean, I'm gonna get this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. My memories of Terry and staging and Bernie, I don't want to use the word conflict, but it was kind of conflicting. Like you said, you'd get charts from Terry, then Bernie would walk in and we push the charts aside and we just learn feel and tempo and
Right.
everything else. And yeah, it was bizarre. It was
Yeah.
bizarre, especially for this cat right here.
Yeah.
Um, what was there any point during staging where you thought, you know what, even during the tour, not that I want to fast forward, but I'm going to add this in. Was there any point you just said, you know what, I don't think I want to do this anymore? You just wanted
Ah, I knew this was coming and I was ready for
yeah.
this.
Okay.
So, when we were there at the production center, at that time, man, all we had were the shirts and the shorts, right? That was all we wore during that whole time of staging. And because of that, we'd have to wait for somebody to open the door for us if we had to be there really, really early. Well, I would get up early.
Mhm.
And I'd get up early, and so I said, "Hey, let me have the key." I would come in, I'd open the door, I'd put coffee on, right? I'd have me a cup of coffee while I'm waiting on everybody else. And sometimes I might have, within an hour after we started, I'd say, "Look, let's take a break." I go get some coffee, but more times than not, when I would go to get coffee, this is when Chief was walking in. This is when Jerry's walking in. This is when JV's walking in, and
Yeah.
so it looks like, first of all, we're not playing. I'm the only one really chilling because I'm in the front getting coffee. The rest of the band is on stage.
Yeah.
And somebody must have said something to Chief because at one point he said something to me and he called me Mr. Coffee. And it pissed me off, quite honestly. And then I think Bernie came and wanted to talk to me about something like, well, every time somebody come in here, you getting coffee. I said, but nobody's up here when I'm opening the door.
Yeah.
Nobody's up here when I'm still shedding by myself when everybody's going to lunch,
Yeah.
right? Because I didn't have that extra money, with a family back home. I wasn't
Right.
spending money like that. I said, nobody sees that part. They just see me up here, what looks like taking a break and not putting in the work.
Right.
And I remember saying, you know what? Y'all don't think I'm good enough? Send my ass home. Just like that. I
Oh.
left my family. I did. I told Grandma, you know what? You don't think I'm good? Like, no, P. Wait, let's, I'm sitting here giving it my best. And, and it was something else Bernie said to me. Man, me and Bernie did this a lot during staging. We did, man.
You're preaching to the choir, sir.
And he and I went at it a number of times. And of course, a lot of times in front of the band, you're like, y'all ain't that good. I remember how you say that to the whole band. Ain't none of y'all that good, right?
Yep.
And then, he and I would have these words one on one, like, P, you ain't as good as you think. I'm like, you know what? I'm giving it my best. And if my
Yeah.
best is not good enough, y'all can always send me home. I told him that a couple of times. Y'all could always send me home. My
Wow.
wife is way on the other side of the world with
Yeah.
my two little kids. So, but
Yeah.
we actually ended up having a really good relationship once the tour started and even after the tour, man.
Yeah.
But during staging, oh, dude.
He was quite shocked. The very first thing Bernie said to me in the 93 staging was, I'll never forget, we're up there rehearsing, and I see him walk down the aisle, coming down, and my jaw, I didn't know he was coming to help with staging. My jaw just dropped because of my experiences with him in USAFE.
Right.
The first thing he says to me as we kind of gathered towards it, we kind of went to the front of the stage. First thing he points at me, goes, "Oh, you finally made it."
Mm.
I'm like, yeah, man. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, Bernie and I, we ended up finally making our piece 97. No, yeah,
Wow.
97. Yeah,
Wow.
97. Yeah, it took that long. Yeah, we had a lot, we had a few issues between us, but we hashed it out. We hashed it
Yeah.
out. We
Yeah.
finally broke bread and hashed it out.
Yeah.
All right, so staging's done. Your first show. Do you remember your first show? Was it in front of the basic trainees at the Bob
Uh,
Help?
so so here's the thing. We did a show in front of the basic trainees, but it was combined. It was the combined groups.
Oh, that's right, because
Interestingly
you were
enough,
the two tours. Right.
right?
Right.
Because
Yep.
we did it just before state. It was the show before stateside left,
Okay.
and so we had all of these vocalists on stage. Oh my
Mhm.
goodness! and only select members of the band were actually playing. So I did get to play,
Mhm.
but yeah, man, that was kind of weird. And then, but our cast did not do anything in front of the troops that I remember um, during staging. I think we did something when we did the mid tour. We might have done
Yeah.
a show there during mid tour, but not prior to the tour.
Okay. So, A Dream into the Future, which is a lovely title, by the way. Um, was there, just for the folks that had never seen the show, don't know anything about it, to kind of describe the theme and describe the whole Murphy's Grill set, which kind of gives it away right there, but kind of describe the set and the theme of the show.
Yeah, so Murphy's Grill, the backdrop was like a soda shop, hamburger shop called Murphy's Grill, and Murphy was the guy. He had been Keith McKay was the comedian, so he was actually playing Murphy. And this was the place that the kids hung out, and all of the cast members were all seniors in school getting ready to graduate for the most part. But this was their hangout spot. And so, the lower level had the main counter and a couple of video machines, video games. And then the upstairs, we had that big riser. And upstairs, you had, it was like a pizza counter and I think maybe a soda counter. And we actually had a pool table up there on the riser, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah, there was a pool table up there
A
too.
real pool table?
Yes, yes, but it
Wow.
was, you know
Wow.
how like everything else made to travel, it was
Yeah.
you had to break it up, break it down, and then put it back up really quick, right?
Mhm.
And there was no balls or anything, just the sticks, so it looked like you were playing pool. But yeah, it was a pool table, and then with all the Tivoli and stuff like that. But and the band members, Marvin, the drums were behind the shorter, that cook line where you place the orders, right? And the
Mhm.
cook would be back there. So Marv had the drums. So if you, depending on where you sat, you might be able to see the cymbals through the opening of the window. But you saw no instrument until me and Andre picked up our guitars. You never saw an instrument on stage.
I
And
seem to remember when you guys came to Torhone, I seem to remember that thinking when I was sitting in the audience going, where's their gear at? I remember
yeah,
having
yeah,
that conversation
yeah.
in my head.
Yeah, there were no instruments. So all of the band members were like waiters. So we had a different outfit. And then because it was the kids, right, coming in there, after school or what have you, they just had a variety of different things. So it wasn't no real costume until the
Mhm.
very end. And
Yeah.
then we had, the stuff with all the sequins. And even then it wasn't us, it was just the singers, the vocalists who had sequins.
You,
But Murphy never changed and the band never changed throughout the whole show.
oh, you didn't have to do any costume changes.
No.
Lucky you.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
And we never left the riser, which was the other crazy thing. So, when we were getting ready to start the show, we had to be in position, obviously, because we would be playing. So we would come in and through the dark, me and Andre, and go up on the riser and the keyboard players. So the four of us were on stage. Marv was downstairs. That was probably the weirdest part, though, about our show is because we could not see Marvin, the drummer,
Mhm.
and he couldn't see us.
Oh, that is kind of weird.
Yeah, so we truly had to play on feel. Marv had to lock in time, and we had to play by feel, and we weren't using sequences then. Terry kept saying we were going to get sequences, but we never did. And
No
so yeah,
click
we
track or
never.
anything.
No, no. So
Yeah.
what we did was truly live.
It was truly live. Yeah.
What was truly live? Every show,
And if
right?
and
And
if your drummer had an espresso before the show, you were totally screwed.
I was just about to say that. And we had some of those shows, man, where we broke the TIB speed limit.
Yeah.
They were so fast, and even the
Yep.
slow stuff was fast.
Fast. Yep. Wow. Do you have a favorite set during that show that you really just love to play?
Gosh, I'm trying to remember. We had a lot of cool songs, so I'm trying to think what was some of the songs that stood out. Um, Probably more of the ballads because the ballads, any of the slow things, you got the chance to hear more of the guitar, the melodic part of the guitar,
Mhm.
as opposed to more of the funkier stuff, uh, or the more rhythmic stuff that might come from either the country or things like that. But with the ballads, it gave me a lot more room to be expressive once I learned what we were doing, and like I said, learning what the keyboards were doing. So knowing that they're doing a certain progression, I could follow. Then I could accent in between it, things like that. And so we really gelled doing that kind of stuff. And our biggest thing was, okay, Marv, give us a good tempo. Don't get us going
Yeah,
too fast.
yeah.
Don't drag it. Don't let it drag. And again, he couldn't see it, so we had to trust that he was just going to lock it in, and we could groove.
That would honestly, that would be tough because I had Roy right here, right behind me.
Yeah,
That would be very tough.
yeah.
Wow. Was there a favorite particular song that you could not wait to play that you just really, really, really just gave you goosebumps every time you played it?
No, but I will tell you, it was funny. The patriotic set. Um, I didn't do, what was it, America? We didn't do that on our show. Of course, we did God Bless the USA, and it was something else we did. Um, but
Let
whatever
Freedom
it
Ring.
was, sorry,
You guys do Let Freedom Ring?
no, we didn't do that one either.
Yeah.
But it was something else we were doing, and I remember learning the songs because both of those songs were songs that I would start, right? And I would always get so nervous, starting it out because man, if I hit a wrong chord or fingering wasn't right, it was
Hmm.
just me.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it were things where I would start and then the key would come in underneath me. So those were probably some of the more memorable things because it really forced me to listen, make sure I played, clean and correctly and all of that. And then of
I
course, we got fines when we messed up, so I definitely
That's
didn't
true.
want no fine.
Yeah.
Playing wrong notes and coming in too early or missing the cues. And that was the other thing too, because I started it. If I didn't start when the vocal cue was there,
Yeah.
whatever the dialogue was as my cue to start, if I didn't start, you might hear them try to improvise. I think that probably happened early, first couple of shows, and it's like I'm just so into the dialogue, I forgot. Oh, I'm supposed to start playing.
I can see that happening. You're
And so
enjoying the show. Chris, you were just
right,
enjoying the
right.
show.
I'm sitting here spectating, right? I got my own popcorn out.
Uh,
But yeah, so that was the thing where I had to remember now, be mindful. Here, get ready. And that was into, like I said, we would take the guitars off. And so as we got to learn the dialogue to know that, oh, here's the place where we're getting ready to play. Go walk over, put the guitar on and get ready,
mhm.
right? And then be ready to start. Make sure the volume's up, right settings, all this kind of stuff. So
Do
those
you
those
do
were
you have
probably the more tenseful
though
things.
it's when you're playing alone and like you said, it's your cue coming up, and you're right. If you don't pay attention, the whole train just piles up on itself. It just
Yeah.
piles up on itself.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
what was your worst, if you had any? I'm assuming probably at least had a few, or maybe not. I don't know. Your worst guitar malfunction during the show.
We were in England. We were in England. I forgot what base. I don't know if it was Mildenhall or where. And Bernie, well, there was a decision made. It wasn't Bernie, but there was a decision made that we were going to swap out the whole PA, the speakers.
Oh, okay.
And I guess we were getting a smaller, more powerful speaker system. And so we did our show, but they told us don't break the set down. And but they had started, the tech crew had started, and so my guitar is sitting up on this 10-foot riser, and it's in the stand, and I came down to go to the bathroom, get a drink or something, and I came back, and somebody said, "Man, how's your guitar?" And I had my own guitar on the tour, by the way. I didn't use one of the TIB guitars. I took my
Okay.
own guitar. And so when they said, "How's your guitar?" I'm like, "What do you mean? How's my guitar?" It fell. I'm like, "What do you mean it fell? Did like it just fall off the stand?" I said, "No, it fell off the riser." So it fell 10 feet to the floor of the stage. Dude, man, I was so hot because by that, they had taken the back panels off of the set.
Yeah.
And so it's sitting on the edge of the riser. And I don't know what happened. It just somebody
Yep.
bumped it and it literally fell off the riser and down. So
Ugh.
that was one. Um, all of these things were not when we were playing though. That was the crazy part. I remember in Japan, I think we were at either Masawa or Yokota, but we played off base at some place downtown, and man, this venue was this crazy hill we had to get up that the truck could barely get through. The stuff was on pallets, as you can imagine, and they went to unload the pallet. And I remember my guitar, I had one of the anvil cases, but it was on the top of the pallet. And when they went to pick the pallet up off the truck, I could see the cases crushing. And I could tell that one of those cases was the one with my guitar in it. And I'm like,
Wow.
whoa, whoa, stop! The case is breaking. The case is
Right.
bending, and they had to literally put the pallet down and reposition it, and then pick it up and pull it down. And so it was just a couple of little things like that. But as far as like other technical malfunctions, I didn't have any, thank goodness. Probably my biggest frustration though was several nights, man. We were still using the wedges, right,
Hmm.
with the individual mix.
Yep.
So this was before we started, everybody was using in-ears and all of that. So with
Hmm.
the wedges, man, I can't tell you how many shows we started where we had no monitors.
Wow.
It was like, ladies and
You
gentlemen,
had them a sound
Thompson
check,
Blue.
but you didn't have them during the show.
Well, yeah, the show would start, because of course they turn everything off after the sound check.
Yeah.
And then, what you would think the audio team would do was turn the monitors on first.
Yeah.
But no, 'cause they've got the house up because whoever's talking, right, is the commander or whomever. And then, um, when they made that announcement, and here we go, Thompson Blue 89, and that should have been a 1, 2, 3, and we start playing or whatever, and we'd start, Marv would count off, and we start, and it's like we don't hear nothing, we don't hear nothing,
Terrifying.
and we might catch something in the house too, and it was
Yeah.
especially hard for the four of us that were on the riser because now a lot of those stages, man, with the curtains, if we were like on the base or in the theater, you know how they'd have those top curtains?
Yep. Yep.
Those would be sitting where our heads would be sitting, if you're sitting in the audience. And so from the first, I don't know, 6, 8 rows, man, we looked like we were 40 feet in the air, man.
Hmm.
It was so tall but that and so sound wise, trying to think how is the sound projecting and of course if we're in a hangar, you got all of that slap back coming at you, so that was even more frustrating. It's like we have no sound and we're trying to cue somebody, no monitors, no monitors, trying to catch a vocalist, trying to yell backstage on the ones that hadn't come out yet, tell them to turn the
Yeah.
monitors on. you
Yeah.
know
Very frustrating. Very frustrating. Um, any particular not guitar related mishaps with you? Other, did you fall? Did you not come out at the right time? I mean, you're always on stage, so I guess that question's kind of a silly because you were always on stage anyways. But was there any other situation where you just kind of, something happened to Chris, not necessarily
yes.
the guitar?
Yes. When we started in Europe, in Germany, I forgot what base we had. It was either Hahn or Bitburg. And I think right after we set up or something, or right after we'd eaten and set up, we were next to a gym. We weren't in the gym, but we were next to a gym. And of course, they had the basketballs and things around. So we're all shooting around and clowning around. And I don't know what I did, man. I went to try to dunk the ball or take a shot or something and came down on a basketball, man, and twisted my ankle really bad.
Wow. Wow.
So
Wow.
much so
Wow.
that so much so that they had to put me in a cast and like a small, soft cast.
Hmm.
And so now I have to climb those stairs to get on the platform with a cast on my leg. And
Hmm.
then I'm standing up there the whole show playing with a cast on my foot.
Show
And I
goes
think
on. The show must go on.
show must go on, man. And I think it was probably 2 weeks, man, that I did shows with a cast on my foot.
Wow. That's crazy. Um, was there any particular show, whether it was a specialty show that just kind of sticks out in your memory that was just a really unique special show?
Two. So I was stationed at Simbach, and we ended up doing a performance at Simbach, and I think they worked that out because that was my base, right? And so it was cool to drive up and one see my name on the marquee,
Yeah,
and
that's always
and
cool.
then we did our show on the football field at Simbach, and so Simbach had a weird setup to where the football field was. It was almost like it was sunken right above like the street level.
Hmm.
And so of course
Like
we
a
had to
bowl.
drive down there, and the the four semis backed up. That was our stage, and so everything was really high up. On top of that, you got we're sitting on the bed of the truck. Then you still got the stage, and then you got this 10-foot platform that we were on.
Hmm.
So that was crazy. That was really high. And but the reception, man, when they announced, the cast, and they mentioned my name, as being a part of the cast, and that I was stationed there, the reception from everybody, and having my the base commander come out and speak to me personally, and recognize me, that was really cool. And
Yeah.
then we had a similar experience when we did our last show in Hawaii. I think it was a similar type of, it was a big outdoor show. And man, that was just so cool to play outdoors. We actually did a show in Greece too, man. I don't know if it was Greece or Crete, but we set up on the beach.
Oh yeah, the beach.
And,
We did
and
a show on the beach.
yeah, and so to have the ocean as your backdrop, yeah, that was crazy cool.
Yeah, yeah, and the acoustics were crazy as well.
Yes, almost non-existent.
Almost
Yeah,
non-existent. Yep.
everything had to be like super loud to make up for the sound of the water and the wind and all of that.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Do you do you remember? So you get so since you guys did between the two tours, the overseas and the stateside, you guys did 160 shows. So let's just divide it in half. Say you guys did 80. I'm not sure how many you guys did overseas.
Yeah, I
Do you
want to say that
remember?
sounds about right. 80, 90 shows, something like that.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. Do you remember your last show, the last time you were going to play on stage with TIB 89?
It was back at Lackland. So we actually did our last show at Lackland. And so that's what I said too. Um, Before the tour, or at the start of the tour, we didn't play in front of the troops, but the last show was.
Hmm.
And I remember that. And probably like most everybody else, it was a very emotional tour because we knew that was the last show. That was going to be our last time
Yeah.
playing it. And we were all just super stoked, super pumped, and we're like, we're gonna go out here and we're gonna put on the best damn show that they've ever seen.
Hmm.
We're gonna nail this thing. And of course, like everybody else, you've done it over and over and over, and so you've constantly refined it. And man, I really felt, and if you were to talk to anybody else from our tour, I think they would agree that we really did go out there and just kill it, man.
Yeah.
Everybody just nailed everything.
Was anybody blubbering, crying halfway through the
Oh
show,
yeah,
realizing it was
yeah.
coming to an end? We were a
I I
mess.
I,
We
I
were a
think it
mess.
was it was actually during the patriotic set.
Correct.
Yeah, it was during to know that now this is the last song of the last show,
Yeah.
and just the emotions, man. Just realizing that this is over. But you know what? I don't think we were as bad as some of the other shows that I've seen. Where they finished up there at Lackland.
Uh,
Partly because we knew that we were going to do a movie, and
oh, that's
and we had
right.
already been told we were going to do it as soon as we did our last show. We were going to break
Mhm.
down, and they had already started working on the script, and what we didn't know was how they were going to shoot it. And so, we broke the stuff down, we put stuff up, and then it's like, okay, now we're going to rehearse the song. And they told we were going to do pretty much all of the songs that we had done, maybe one or two new songs. So we had to set up so the band could learn the new songs. But as we were rehearsing, then they said, okay, we're going to go over here and we're going to shoot this scene over here. And so we had no idea how the show was written. All we know was show over here, we're going to do this song in this setting, or these songs in this setting. And I think there was a couple of times that now we've got to put on some kind of costume, because I think there's one scene inside the restaurant. We actually rebuilt this restaurant. It was an abandoned building, and we rebuilt it to look like a restaurant, like Murphy's Grill.
Oh,
And they literally, the tech crew and some others came over and rebuilt it. So they put in a counter and the decorations and chairs and tables and all that kind of stuff. And so it really looked like a little restaurant. And then there's a couple of scenes where I look like I'm in a band. I'm wearing like a band uniform. So, as part of the band, we did that. But then there's a couple other scenes where we are in the corner as a group, just playing behind the singers, like a little combo in that
Mhm.
particular scene. And then for the country set, that whole thing was done outdoors, man. And we were over there off of 410 and Bandera, man, in the parking lot. And I think we went over there about 9 o'clock at night to shoot. And I'm thinking, where are we going to shoot at 9 o'clock at night? And then walked over there and saw the stage set up. And then we saw this crowd gathering. I'm like, who are all these people, all these extras that they had convinced to come out and be part of the crowd for our show?
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, and man, so that was probably the wildest part of the video itself was
Mhm.
filming that piece and to know that we were doing a couple of songs from our show at 1 o'clock in the morning in this parking lot, right, with all of these people. So that was
Wow.
pretty cool.
Yeah, we didn't get to do a movie. We kind of prepped for it a little bit because we thought it was going to happen, and it just didn't happen. It didn't pan out. Um, all right, so tour is over. I want to fast forward. I'm going to kind of put you on the spot here a little bit, Chris, so bear with me.
All right.
I want to fast forward to 93. Now you're on staff. I'm sorry, 92. Now you're on staff. Um, and I'm dying to ask this question. I'm gonna set the scene for you. I'm gonna let you take it from there. So I get to the instrumental solo auditions, and who do I meet? I see my buddy Chris. Do you remember the interview with me?
Vaguely,
What do
vaguely.
you what do you think you vaguely remember?
Well, I remember, of course, competing against you,
Yeah,
and I knew that you were a good player, and I remember you being very excited about it, but also very nervous.
yeah.
And I think we probably talked more than we played, really,
We never
because
even played a note.
I was going to say it seemed like I
We
remember
never
us
my
talking.
bass never even came out of the case, brother.
Yeah, because I mean I had heard you play,
Yeah,
so I knew that, and I knew at this point you had had a chance to go through the grill that I went through, go through
yeah,
the grilling that I went through. And so
yeah.
really it was just about, how do you feel about it and are you ready for it? And I think that was probably more of what we talked about. I was telling you about what my experience was like, both in staging,
Correct.
being on the road and all of that, and just trying to kind of prepare you mentally for what was ahead if you were selected.
Yeah, yeah. So because there was like four, 4 or 5 bass players at that worldwide at 92.
Hmm.
And Donovan Francis,
Yep, I remember him.
uh we had uh Zeph was there,
Yeah,
and I'm thinking there's no way. There's no way. Because
right.
I've seen Zeph play since '88, and we both came through the same bass together. I'm thinking there's no way. The shock when I was called, and I keep going back to how did Chris, and I literally over the decades, Chris, how did Chris pitch me to Chief? What was the pitch when they're sitting at a table with Tom and pitching the instrumentalists, which drummer, which bass player, which horn player? Do you remember how you pitched me to Chief, or did you have to?
I don't think I had to. I know our biggest thing was just recommendations, and it was more about attitude than playing
Mhm.
ability, right?
Yeah.
And I
Yep.
think
Yep.
I think that was the thing that I really took away, and I appreciated more than anything else too, was that as I'm sure you've seen, you'll see some great players,
Mhm.
but knowing that everybody is watching you, everybody on staff, all of the command sponsors and representatives, everybody's watching you. They're watching your interactions with the other contestants, the other staff members, all of this stuff. And so knowing that
Mhm.
everybody's watching you, I think was a big factor. And they were already judging who is going to be able to get along with other people,
Yeah.
regardless of how well you played. And I think that was probably one of the good conversations I had with Bernie was that they don't want any prima donnas, and if you think you're all of that, the show's not going to be built around you. Even though songs were built around singers, and things
Yeah.
like that, or instrumentalists, depending on what the song was. But by and large, nothing was built around any one individual. So if you come in there with a prima donna attitude, yeah, you weren't going to make it. And I
And
think
that folks right there is the lesson as to why it took me from 1983 to 1991 to get to my first worldwide and eventually the 92 worldwide is because I was a cocky bass player and just a, and that's no exaggeration. I'll say it right now. I was a cocky bass player, and I've told the story ad nauseum on this podcast. And I knew I had to change my ways because at the USAFE talent show that you and I were in, when I was doing the tech rehearsals and Bernie was sitting down in the front row, I got into it with a band about not syncing up, and I kind of said something I shouldn't have to the band. And I've said this before again. I watched Bernie take a Sharpie or something go right across my name.
Wow, really?
Yeah, yeah, and
Wow.
I knew right then I was toast. But that was the defining moment that I knew I had to change my way of
Yeah,
thinking and my attitude towards the trying to make blues. I had to change my way of presenting myself and to remodel how I did this whole thing. And it was quite eye opening, quite
yeah,
eye opening. So you get to staging. So we get the '93 team gets selected, and you go to staging to help us at staging there at Lackland. My memories of you at staging are you were always in the shed booth with Robert,
yes.
always in there. I got a great picture. I'm going to dig it out. I'm going to find this picture. I've got a great picture of you sitting with Robert in the shed booth at the production center. I will find that. I will find that picture. Tell me
So,
about your memories about the '93 staging.
so that was interesting also because, like I said, I had been told prior to my selection that guitar players were really hard to find and to keep.
Mhm.
And so when I got a chance now to actually interview and hear guitar players coming through, part of me could see it, right? But then it's like, man, I remember Robert's performance in the competition. He did an instrumental
Mhm.
solo and he did an Earl Klug number. I remember it vividly. That
Yep.
white acoustic guitar,
Yep.
man, and he played it, man, and it was like, wow, I'm amazed. But
Yep.
then when we got an
Very good.
interview, and he told me he couldn't read. And I'm like, what? You play like that and you can't read? And he's like, no, man. And I told him, I says, dude, man, you have got to figure out how you can grasp this because you are going to get overwhelmed if you get selected because it's
Mhm.
going to come so fast and furious. And and I was trying to when he did get selected, I was happy for him. But he's like, man, I think the very first time I came to the staging rehearsal and we talked, he's like, man, I'm really going to need your help. And so I agreed to sit down with him as much as I could, telling him, of course, that I can't just spend time with him. I'm there to
Yeah.
work with the whole band, but
Yep.
as much as I could. And I think the saving grace was that you guys really came in and got to work. And so I did not have to spend as much time as I thought, which freed me up to spend time with him. And I was really trying to help him,
Mhm. Mhm.
learn how to navigate those charts, how to navigate those chords, right? So that he could adapt it. Because he was really going to try to learn it all by ear. And I'm like, man, you're going to get so overwhelmed because
Yeah.
as soon as you learn it, as you know, they're going to come in and cut it all up. And then now
Yep.
you got to know what got cut and where. And it's not going to be what you hear, it's what you can see. And that I remember vividly telling them that, man, you're going to think, okay, I know where we're at and we're going to cut this and this and this. And no. And they're going to say, and Terry's going to come in and say, play up to this point, cut all this out, drop this in, skip to
Mhm.
this, and then come back to this.
Yeah.
And then we're going
Modulate
to,
here.
yeah, yeah, you know. And I said, man, you're gonna and whatever notes you're taking, they're not gonna work for you. They are not. I
Yeah.
mean, just handwritten notes that describe what we just talked about, it won't work. If you
Yeah.
can't see it on the music and know where you're going from the music, yeah, you're gonna get lost.
Yeah. It was. I remember. Well, I mean, staging was overwhelming for me, obviously, but Robert, and I were the least capable readers of the entire group. The
Mm,
least capable, the entire group, and we knew that going in. The only saving grace is that I had to go back to the dorm. Well, it was 2 o'clock in the morning or whatever. I'd always have to go to the day room by myself and just because I had to catch up with the horn players and the keyboardists. I had to.
mm,
I had to keep up to those guys.
yeah.
And I remember Robert and I being in the day room, and I remember him saying to me, he says, and I'll never forget this. He says to me, he wasn't playing. I was doing some shedding. He walks by me to go to the bathroom or something, and he says, I didn't realize that most jazz tunes and most swing tunes, it's a different chord on every beat. I'm like, I'm like, neither did I.
Yeah,
Neither did
yeah,
I.
yeah,
He was he was quite flummoxed by that whole process. He really
Yeah,
was. But we got through staging and pressed on. So
yeah, yeah.
whatever you did worked. What do you
Yeah.
remember? What do you remember about the '93 band when you were there? What do you remember about us?
I'm trying to remember who else was in the band.
So Roy Mills was drums,
Ah,
Robert,
yes.
me, Kevin Bourne, Gary Funderburk on
Oh yeah, Kevin.
J.C. Klein, Rich Smith on keyboards. Rich Smith.
Yeah,
Man,
yeah.
whew, wow.
Well,
Um,
JC was on the '89 tour too. He was on the stateside
yep,
cast.
yep,
I remember
yep.
him, and I remember Roy, and I remember it was someone else you mentioned.
Kevin.
Kevin
Yep,
Bourne. Yeah,
yep.
yeah. So you guys were a hoot actually. You guys were because you guys challenged me and you made it fun. But I do remember between Roy and Lucky, the year that Lucky made the tour.
Yeah.
Um, I remember Tom pulling me aside and it's like, the band can play, but they don't groove. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, they're not grooving. And Chief was like, make them groove. I'm like, what? Make them groove?
Make him groove.
And
That
and
should be a
Dave,
shirt. That should be a
Dave,
shirt.
no offense, but I'm like, that's an all white band. That was probably my first thought. I'm like, make them groove. Shucks, if
Yeah,
they're not
that's
grooving
great.
already, I don't know if I can put that in them,
That's
right?
great.
And I remember both talking to Roy, especially, and to Lucky. And I think we were doing like a Whitney tune or something like that, like "I'm Your Baby" or something. And you guys were playing it, but yeah, it just didn't have the right feel. And I
Mhm.
forgot what it was. And I'm like, okay, you know what? Let's take this one instrument at a time. And I don't know if it was you and Roy or who, but I'm like, I just want to hear bass and drums. And you guys play this, and just you
Mhm.
guys got to lock and make this feel good.
Yeah.
And then we added the keys, and then we added the guitar. But I'm like, but when the instrument, I think remember saying, when another instrument comes in, don't change what you're doing. And just, we only did like a section of the song too. We just kind of looped this section, just play this
Right.
and just stay there and just just get a pocket. And
Yep.
I think that was it too, because I don't know that everybody understood what it meant to get a pocket.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
get a pocket, man. Let's just get a pocket. Lock this in and just make this feel good. Let's just make that. I started doing like Bernie. Let's just make it right here, funky and nasty, and
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
simple and nasty, right? Just lock
Yep.
it. Bass and
Yep.
drums. If you guys don't make it funky and nasty, nobody else will. And all this stuff will just get messy. And I think we talked about doing that, and I got in trouble. I got in trouble. Funny you asked, right, with Chief, because like you're taking too long with him. I'm like, but they're getting, when you hear it, it sounds good. But
Mhm.
we spent a lot of time on a lot of songs doing that.
Yeah.
You guys had kind of got it, and then I'm like, okay, let's just break it down, and we started doing this a little bit at a time and build it. Because I said, but by the time the horns come in, if the rest of it ain't grooving, the horns are gonna really make the sound messy. And then
Yeah.
even with the horns too, trying to get them to be really precise, articulate, hitting their notes, right? Everybody hitting exactly,
Mhm.
same phrasing, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it was fun.
I can't tell you how many times Terry would tell me, he put his hand on my shoulder and say, "Dave, you really have to pull the train better." I'm like,
Ah,
I'm like, okay, I got you. I got you.
yeah,
I got you. I hear you. I hear you.
yeah.
All right. Uh, let's do some. Not that this hasn't been fun, because this has been really quite phenomenal for me. But I got some fun stuff questions for you to
All
finalize
right.
this wonderful podcast. All right, you ready?
Yes, sir.
Strat or Les Paul?
Strat.
Okay. Al Di Meola or Stevie Ray Vaughan?
Stevie Ray.
Okay. A song that you will listen to every time it comes up, whether you're streaming, on the radio, or whatever. You will listen to it every single time.
It still has to be probably Breezing by George Benson.
Really? That's
Breezing,
cool. Yeah.
breezing or affirmation.
Okay. All right. What's your favorite guitar solo of all time?
My favorite guitar song.
Your favorite guitar solo
Oh,
from,
solo.
from another artist? Yes.
Um, wow. That's kind of hard to say now, man, because I really have only three that I really absolutely love more than anybody else. Paul Jackson Jr. is number one. I've come to really, really love his stuff, and he's probably one of the most recorded guitar players around now, across multiple genres,
Mhm.
right? And I've had the opportunity to meet him, and so having met him, man, now you talking about being starstruck.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Um,
No, I get
but there's
that.
a
Yep.
there's a younger player now who's literally right behind him, and that's Adam Hawley, um, who's done a lot of stuff, primarily in smooth jazz, but he's worked with some other, prominent pop and R&B artists. But again, the first time I heard him and then got to meet him, and I love his sound, I love his touch,
Yeah.
his technique, right? Just his everything about the way he plays, man. I just absolutely love it. And
Okay.
then when I
All
hear
right.
him on other people, I can tell when I hear it. I'm like, that's Adam Hawley, right?
Yeah. You know it's him.
Yeah.
What was your favorite cartoon when you were growing up?
Oh, easy. Bugs Bunny.
Favorite overall TV show when you were growing up, when you were a kid?
I don't know that I had a favorite show. There was so much that came out back in the day, and I love to watch everything, but cartoons actually was my biggest thing. I love cartoons of all
Okay.
kinds back then. The cartoons today I don't care for, but the cartoons back then.
Back then, yes. Yeah, I'm scooping what you're dumping, my friend. I'm picking up what you're laying down there. God forbid, if you had to have your last meal, what would your last meal be?
Fried chicken.
Okay.
I like Yardbird in all of its various
I
forms
love
and
that you say
iterations.
Yardbird. I love that you say Yardbird. That's great.
My wife, don't you get tired of chicken? No,
No.
no.
Just hey, I can't argue with you there, man. Just describe your first guitar.
My first guitar, wow. I was probably, well, the first one that I owned was one that I
Yep.
told you my uncle gave me after I got
Yep.
married, and it
Yep.
was a Les Paul copy, that I had, refurbished and fixed up. I'm trying to remember the first one I bought, and I can't even remember the first one that I bought myself. And even now, if you were to look at my collection, I mean, the few that you can see in the background, I got three hanging up in front of me and one on the side. Every guitar has a story. I've never spent a lot of money on guitar because after that thing in England where my guitar fell,
Hmm.
I'm clumsy too. I'm just as clumsy. And
Hmm.
so I've bumped my guitar, I've knocked it over, I've scratched it. And so the thought of having a $2,000 guitar with a scratch on it would drive me crazy.
Ooh.
And even more so knowing that I did it.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I don't have a guitar that's more than $1,500. And I've got one that I play quite regularly that's like really $120. Yeah. I don't know if you can see that one there next to the acoustic one in the middle.
Oh yeah. 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 Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, that's like a highway between a Strat and a Tele.
Yeah.
Um,
That's a little bit of both. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, but I got that man for like $120. And at the time I only had about three guitars and the other two were in the shop and I had a gig. I had a last minute gig. I'm like, God, I need a guitar. And I had just put mine in the shop. And so like I need another guitar. And so I went to the music store and they had a bunch of them. They had a bunch of those, right? And everyone I picked up played terrible. And I must have picked up like six of them before I found one that was halfway playable
Hmm.
and that I could walk out the store and play like that night at a gig because that's literally what I did. And I'm like, you know what?
Right.
I'm gonna keep this guitar because if I ever get into a bind, this will be the guitar. And if somebody steals it, I won't feel bad because it was $100.
What? Yeah. Who cares about that one? Dogs or cats?
Neither.
Neither. Okay. I like. Okay. All right. What's your favorite effects pedal?
Hold on. Um, it still has to be the chorus now. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, it was my first pedal, and it's still my favorite. I'm actually becoming more of a fan of compression though, because when I study the sound of the players that I like, one of the things that really makes their sound so distinctive is actually the compression that they
Right.
use, which brings the notes out and really adds a presence to it. So I'm becoming more of a fan of compression, but again, just a light
Yeah.
compression, and then the chorus just adds a little color every now and then.
if you had to give 17-year-old Chris a piece of small advice, just quick advice, what would it be? If you could look back after now that you're in the third period of this hockey game in life, and you had to tell 17-year-old Chris Knox some advice, what would be the shortest version of advice you would give him
Does that be music or just in general?
in life and whatever you want to give advice to? If you had to look back and now and say to Chris at 17, this is what you need to do, blah 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 blah.
Um, expect the unexpected.
Oh, perfect, perfect, absolutely perfect, sir. Love that.
Expect the unexpected.
I love
You
it.
know, 17-year-old Chris thought he knew everything,
Yeah.
and it
And
was
17-year-old Chris really liked his hair too.
and again the unexpected.
Yep, yep. I love that. All right, final question before we wrap this puppy up. What prior influenced you the most? I bet I have the answer, but go ahead.
Um, Before me or after me?
Hey, whatever prior. The key word is prior. You
So
have one.
honestly, I have to say two though. I have to say
Okay,
two.
all right. I'll grant you that,
Bernie,
sir.
Bernie was the first one
Okay.
because again, I didn't know until he pulled me aside and realized that he was a guitar player. And then when I
Yep.
actually got to hear him play years later at one of the reunion shows. So
Hmm.
Bernie was probably the first, like so many of us. But probably now the other prior who has really influenced me the most, believe it or not, is Daryl McKeechin.
Oh, love it. Absolutely love it. Yep.
You know, and I won't steal his thunder, but Daryl and I have a special relationship, and I think I might have spoke about it, you know, because he was in the band
Hmm.
that I had here in San Antonio before he went on tour,
Hmm.
and you know, to see where he started to where he is now, and even when I work with him, man, he pushes me to another level, you
Right.
know.
Well, there's no denying Daryl's one of the cats.
Yeah,
Absolutely one of the cats. Man, I you're not gonna get any argument from me there whatsoever.
yeah,
All right, folks. Well, listen, Chris, it's been a pleasure talking to you. It's been a
my
pleasure
pleasure,
knowing
man.
you since 1989. You were of immense help to me in staging. I call you a friend. I couldn't wait to talk to you today because of our history and our past. I thank you for whatever good words you gave to Chief during the 92 staging or the 92 worldwide.
Uh,
Um, and I every chance I got to see you play, which wasn't hasn't been a whole lot to be honest with you. Um, I've always enjoyed your playing. Your advice was always solid back in the staging days, and I love you like a brother, man. I
Same
love you
here,
like a
man.
brother,
Same
and
here.
I thank you for coming on the Priory podcast. And yeah, folks, 1989 overseas tour, Chris Knox Sr., a Dream into the Future tour, 20-year Air Force veteran, the Intel community. Thanks a lot, Chris. I appreciate you being on the Priory, man. Thank you
Man,
so
thank
much,
you.
man.
Thank you for having me, man. Take
Yeah,
care.
man. Yep.